Great Elder had always wanted Long Fei to join the clan congress to fight for his honor. Great Elder had always wanted Long Fei to join the clan congress to fight for his honor. However, he never thought that Long Fei would actually reject him so straightforwardly. He was a little disappointed in his heart, but he did not dare say anything to Long Fei. He knew Long Fei's strength, he could not afford to offend him. The great clan elder asked anxiously, "Are you really not going to consider it again? Just consider it as contributing to the sect." There was a hint of pleading in his voice. He really had no way to deal with Long Fei. Long Fei said, "Clan Congress is of no help to me, but don't worry, even if I do not participate, I will definitely let ancient antiquity obtain first place. Just because I'm not participating doesn't mean that my brothers aren't participating." He didn't want to put time on it. Now that he had the holy source veins mining under the North Peak, his breathing could even level up. He did not want to waste time on some clan congress. He only wanted to quickly level up. Preparing to enter the divine space, the great clan elder let out a long breath and said, "I know that the people beside you are all peerless geniuses, but the disciples that are participating in the clan congress are all geniuses amongst geniuses. They are all people who have the strength to pass the God's assessment. Clan Congress, the of the divine space will pay attention to this as well. It will be beneficial to you. Moreover, your friends' cultivations are too low right now. No matter how fast they wouldn't be able to break through much within 2 months." He still did not give up. Because he did not have much confidence in Bailey Tianhai, his cultivation was too low, and cultivation realm was everything. He only trusted Long Fei. Someone who could kill the gods, taking first place in clan congress would definitely not be a problem. Long Fei said, "Great clan elder, just relax, I, Long Fei, have never let you down. In 2 months' time, I will definitely reform their bodies, and their cultivation will definitely increase by leaps and bounds." Seeing Long Fei being so persistent, the great clan elder did not say anything else. Long Fei said, "You can rest assured about clan congress, it definitely won't be a problem. Can you help me recruit some disciples now?" The great elder said, "I can only help you talk about the matter of recruiting disciples. However, it's hard to say if there are any disciples willing to leave with you. The inner sect's 7 peaks were well established and had many resources for cultivation. Who would be willing to leave the 7 peaks? Follow Long Fei to clear the wasteland?" It was simply impossible. However, the great clan elder would still try his best because he was Long Fei. "Someone, come. Inform the peak owner of the 7th peak, have them come here to discuss something." A disciple walked out of the courtyard, and not long after, the horn sounded. "Main hall. To the North Peak. What kind of joke is this? In such a desolate place like North Peak, whatever you want is nothing special. Who would be willing to go there? I don't know about others, but my disciple will definitely not go. My disciple won't go as well. Long Fei, it's not that easy to be a peak owner. Ha ha ha. Nobody is willing to go to an abandoned place like North Peak. Captain Long, I think it's fine if all of you join my sect. I'll set up a branch hall for you and you can be the hall master. What do you think?" Many of the peak owners and elders had faces full of contempt. Divide a disciple to Long Fei? Impossible. They could only wish that Long Fei could stay in the North Peak. After all, in the 7 peaks, there was now 1 more North Peak and 1 more peak owner. They were naturally unhappy. The great clan elder said, "Right now, the Captain Long needs disciples to build up their North Peak. Each of you has over 1,000 disciples under you." As soon as he finished, King of Sword Elves immediately said, "Great clan elder, you don't know, my Sword Elf Mountain's disciples are in urgent need. We of Beastmaster Mountain also lack people. I also need it. I also need people." None of them were willing to help. Long Fei could tell that these peak owner would definitely not give up their disciples to him. Since that was the case, Long Fei did not want to say anything more. He had originally wanted to give them some of the resources from the Holy Source Vein Mine, but it was no longer necessary now. Long Fei said, "Great Elder, since all the great peak owners do not have disciples for me, then can I recruit disciples from the outer sect?" The great elder was stunned. "Outer court disciples? Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Captain Long, are you joking? I know you entered the inner sect through the outer sect examination. I don't mean to ridicule you, but the outer sect disciples are all noobs. What can they do? You brought them into the inner sect. Do you want to turn North Peak into an outer sect disciple? Ha ha ha. Several peak owners began to laugh. The great clan elder looked at Long Fei's serious expression and said, "Since you are allowed to become a peak owner, then I must support you a little more. Do what you want to do." Long Fei slightly bowed and said, "Thank you." Then, Long Fei did not stop and directly walked out of the hall. After he left, all sorts of mocking laughter could be heard from within the hall. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Summon disciples from the outer sect. What does that Long Fei think of himself? Do you really think you're a god just because you found a few talented disciples? He's really overestimating himself. Let's see how long his North Peak can hold out for. The great elder said solemnly, "All right, you can disperse now." Many peak owner began to converge. The great elder looked at Long Fei's disappearing back and also sighed softly, thinking to himself, "If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have let you go to the North Peak." Outer sect. When Long Fei appeared in the outer sect, he immediately attracted a lot of attention. He was very famous in the outer sect. Now that he was a member of the inner court, there were even more people who worshipped him. In next to no time, hundreds of outer court disciples had gathered at the outer court plaza. Long Fei went straight to the point. "Anyone who is willing to follow me to the inner sect doesn't need to be examined. As long as they are willing, I can bring them into the inner sect. I'll go. I'll go. Is there such a good thing? Could it be a trap? Even if it's the senior brothers themselves, they don't have the authority to bring so many people into the inner sect, right? What are you doing?" Long Fei said, "I am now peak owner, and I need to build my own power. If you come with me, you will be inner sect disciples, and when North Peak is established, your status will be as noble as the other inner sect disciples." North Peak. Never heard of it. Where is the North Peak? It seems to be a desolate hill. The aura of the holy source is even stronger than our outer sect. F***CK, aren't they trying to pull us out into the wilderness? I can't go. You can still go. What a scam. When news of North Peak's situation spread, many people started to retreat. Long Fei did not force it. Those who go will have a chance to be reborn. Thus, Long Fei did not explain any further. He would go if he was willing, and he would absolutely not force him to do whatever he wanted. Several tens of disciples were gathered in the middle of the morning. In another place, Sword Elf Mountain. Liu Luoshi looked in the direction of the North Peak, his hand gently stroking his stomach as he gently smiled and said, "Let's go too." The results of the recruitment were not ideal. When he brought them to the North Peak in the afternoon and saw that the North Peak didn't even have a place to stay, more than half of them left. Only 15 people remained. This made Fang Wamping a little anxious, and he said, "Peak owner, with so few people, building a good mountain is a bit difficult." Indeed. 15 people. Including them, there were only 20 or so. It would be too difficult for such a person to manage a mountain. Long Fei was not in a rush, and said, "There's more to it than expected, take it slowly, it's a little better than what I expected." He thought he wouldn't be able to recruit anyone. These 15 people were beyond his expectations. The Brothers of Five Elements was comforting them. Long Fei did not make any promises to them, and from the very beginning, he made them weed and build houses, treating them like farmers in a game. The 15 of them all had some complaints in their hearts. However, seeing that Long Fei was also doing it with them, the blame was reduced by a bit. Midnight. Finally, he cleaned up the weeds around him and built a simple house. Long Fei said, "Thank you everyone. I don't want to make too many promises to everyone. I only want to say one thing, follow me and you will all get what you want. If anyone can't hold on any longer, I, Long Fei, will definitely not stop them, but I want to say this, if you leave, you will all lose your lives. The biggest chance. All right. Rest early and continue tomorrow." No holy source stones were distributed. He didn't take him down to train either. If he wanted to test someone, he had to first test his patience. In this restless world, if he didn't have even the slightest bit of patience, then even Long Fei, a genius, would give up. Many people whispered, "I don't want to play anymore. Senior brother, I came to ancient antiquity to learn skills. I do not wish to waste my time on doing these chores, I am sorry." A disciple stood up. Subsequently, 2 more disciples stood up. They didn't want to go on like this. Too tired. It was a waste of time here. Long Fei did not stop him and smiled faintly. "Uncle Fang." Fang Wanpeng took out 3 holy source stones, 1 for each of them. Long Fei said, "Consider it your salary today, take it, let's go." The 3 left, leaving only 12 people behind. The 12 of them gritted their teeth, but no one left. Night fell. The phoenix leaned against Long Fei's shoulder, and muttered, "My darling, why do you need to establish some sort of North Peak? There's no point. If you want your strength to belong to you, why don't you follow me back to the Phoenix Valley?" Long Fei laughed. "I will follow you back to the Phoenix Valley to be your son-in-law?" Phoenix giggled and said, "That's fine. You can be my son-in-law. All of my clansmen will be under your command, but..." Long Fei laughed and asked, "What do you want?" Phoenix said, "I'm just afraid that my aunt will not agree." "Ha ha ha." Long Fei laughed and said, "Silly girl." Phoenix said, "My darling, will you follow me back to Phoenix Valley?" She wanted Long Fei to go with her. She was not far from her return. She couldn't bear to leave Long Fei. The last time Dark Apostle appeared, and his own hands were buckled with the bracelet of black light, Aunt already knew about it. She definitely wouldn't let him stay in the mortal world. Long Fei said, "Now?" Phoenix nodded seriously and replied, "En." Long Fei said gently, "Not now, I'm not strong enough." Phoenix said, "You're very powerful, you can even kill God's powerhouse." Long Fei smiled, and said, "Little girl, you want me to marry you?" Phoenix nodded her head heavily and said, "Yes." Long Fei said, "When I become stronger, when the day when I become a monarch in the world comes around, I will gather all 108 gods. I will gather the 8 King Kong and the 5 element overlords to come to Phoenix Valley." Phoenix was stunned. In her mind, she was imagining the scene Long Fei would tell her. She suddenly felt incomparably blissful and said coquettishly, "My darling, actually, I don't need to do this." Long Fei said, "Only like this would I be worthy of you." Phoenix giggled and said, "My darling, you're so handsome." As he spoke, he slipped into Long Fei's embrace. Long Fei laughed. The phoenix had an unshakable position in his heart, and he was incomparably familiar with it. Was there a phoenix in his sealed memories? Long Fei didn't know. But it didn't matter. They were tired of each other for a long time. Suddenly, a sword hum came from below North Peak. Clang. "Liu Luoshi, what's wrong with Sword Elf Mountain? Why did you come to this kind of place? I command you to return with me, otherwise don't blame me for being impolite." King of Sword Elves' voice. Liu Luoshi's face was slightly pale, the palm on his right hand that was holding onto his sword cracked open, and he looked at King of Sword Elves. "Master, I want to go to North Peak." Not far away, Ling Yuan's eyebrows tightened. He knew that there was Long Fei on the North Peak, who was also the man that Liu Luoshi jumped off the cliff to save her last time. The reason why King of Sword Elves found out that Liu Luoshi had left the Sword Elf Mountain was also because Ling Yuan said so. He could not stop Liu Luoshi and wanted the King of Sword Elves to stop him. "How dare you?" King of Sword Elves replied heavily, and said, "What's good about North Peak? Your current identity is special, so you cannot leave Sword Elf Mountain." He already knew about the arrangements from the Great Elder. He knew that a divine powerhouse had already set his eyes on Liu Luoshi. He was Liu Luoshi's master, so he would definitely be rewarded by the divine powerhouse. Thus, he couldn't let Liu Luoshi leave, and even more so, couldn't let her enter another mountain gate. Liu Luoshi said, "Master, there is someone in North Peak that I like. I want to be with him." King of Sword Elves frowned. "That brat Long Fei?" Liu Luoshi nodded, and said, "Yes. I hope Master can help." King of Sword Elves was already angered and shouted fiercely, "Speak up my ass. As long as I'm still alive, I won't let you be with that brat." Liu Luoshi was his money source. How could he just let it go? King of Sword Elves said, "Come back with me now, I guarantee that you won't have anything to do in the Sword Elf Mountain. After you pass the Divine Spaces test, I will not stop you from doing anything." Liu Luoshi was also very firm. His left hand gently stroked his stomach as he said, "No, I must go to North Peak. I must definitely be with the man I like." You. King of Sword Elves was extremely angry. The aura of the King Swordsman was released from his body. Boom. Boom. The pressure of the King Swordsman directly crushed Liu Luoshi to the point that he couldn't move at all. Her face was even paler. King of Sword Elves said solemnly, "You are not allowed to act recklessly. Ling Yuan, bring her back to the Sword Elf Mountain." Ling Yuan flew over, landed beside Liu Luoshi, and said, "Junior sister, you should listen to master." Liu Luoshi looked at Ling Yuan. She wanted to struggle, but the little thing in her stomach began to struggle. She didn't dare to move recklessly. She was afraid of hurting the child in her womb. Ling Yuan carried her, leaped up high, and gently landed. Within the span of a few breaths, he disappeared. At this moment, Long Fei rushed over. Long Fei heard the clashing of swords and rushed over. Long Fei heard the clashing of swords and rushed over. However, when they rushed to the scene, other than the King of Sword Elves, there was no one else. Long Fei looked at King of Sword Elves and asked, "King of Sword Elves, what are you doing here so late in the night?" King of Sword Elves sheathed his sword and revealed a cold smile, and said, "Why do I have to report to you?" In the past, King of Sword Elves would be slightly courteous towards Long Fei, but now that Long Fei was also a peak master, it could be said that he was Long Fei's competitor. Adding on the fact that Liu Luoshi liked Long Fei, it made him hate Long Fei even more. The look of disdain on King of Sword Elves' face also made Long Fei very unhappy, and he said, "You don't need to report to me, but this is my North Peaks territory. What are you trying to do, waving your sword in my territory late at night?" King of Sword Elves shot a cold glance at him and laughed coldly. "Your territory? Kid, who do you think you are? Do you think you can stand on equal footing with me just because of the Great Elder's favoritism? Return your territory." "Humph," Long Fei said, "seems like you're not in a good mood." King of Sword Elves said, "You don't even have the qualifications to make me unhappy." "Oh, is that so?" Long Fei's eyes darkened, and said, "You intruded into my North Peak late at night, so even if I cripple you now, you still deserve it." With that, the King of Sword Elves immediately became furious. He shouted, "Cripple me? Ha ha ha. Kid, who do you think you are? This lowly one has gained the upper hand. You still want to kill people? I'd like to see how you cripple me. F***ck. Long Fei cursed, and the aura on his body gushed out, three-rate ancient dragon body. He exploded forth with his strength. Long Fei's figure suddenly shot forward. Shua. With an extremely fast speed, he instantly appeared in front of King of Sword Elves. King of Sword Elves' pupils tightened. He was also a powerhouse at the peak of the King Swordsman. Furthermore, he had cultivated for several thousand years his reaction and calmness. He did not panic even when Long Fei suddenly appeared in front of him. Instead, it was the release of the full power of the King Swordsman rank, which created a strong pressure from the King Swordsman. The longsword moved. When the King Swordsman's might was released, he looked like the Emperor of a sword. Boom. The punch landed. The sword slashed out. The two forces clashed. King of Sword Elves' body exploded as he retreated, his internal organs rolled about, the stench of blood stinging as he forcefully endured it. He locked his eyes on Long Fei and his expression slightly changed. Long Fei's body only retreated half a step. King of Sword Elves never thought that Long Fei's cultivation would be terrifying to this extent. It was only immortal swordsman rank, but it was actually able to shatter the power of his King Swordsman, shake off the pressure of his King Swordsman, and even heavily injure him. He felt relieved in his heart. No wonder I was able to obtain the appreciation of the Great Elder. Without waiting for King of Sword Elves to stabilize himself, Long Fei rushed forward once again. Shua. Once again landing in front of King of Sword Elves. With a surge of his fists, He released the power of the dragon's body, superpower boxing. Bam! Both fists struck out at the same time. It directly landed on King of Sword Elves' chest. King of Sword Elves could not defend at all, his entire body was sent flying, he crashed into a huge rock and shattered it. A mouthful of blood sprayed out. His face turned as pale as a sheet of paper, incomparably pale. Long Fei moved again. Without waiting for King of Sword Elves to crawl back up, he landed in front of him once again. Looking down from above, he coldly stared at King of Sword Elves and said, "Go ahead." After 2 attacks, the King of Sword Elves was already unable to get up from the ground. It was too easy for the 3-rate ancient dragon body to crush a powerhouse of the King Swordsman rank. The power of the divine space and the strength of a mortal was simply not on the same level. King of Sword Elves became nervous. He did not expect this to happen. He never thought that Long Fei's power would actually be so strong. He thought that Long Fei only had some power from the very beginning, to be able to obtain the favor of the great clan elder. King of Sword Elves looked at Long Fei and said, "Captain Long, I was reckless just now." He quickly changed his words. Just as Long Fei had said, this was the North Peak. He had come here late at night. Even if Long Fei crippled him or even killed him, he would have nothing to say. Long Fei said, "You know your name is Captain Long now?" King of Sword Elves said, "It's my fault. I apologize." Long Fei said, "I really don't know what my surname is if we don't fight." He retracted his aura. Long Fei did not think of killing him. There were no grievances or grievances, he would not kill a peak master with just a few words. That way, he would not be able to stay in ancient antiquity. He had even wanted to borrow the ancient antiquity's power to enter the divine space. Since the King of Sword Elves gave in, Long Fei did not want to continue either. Long Fei said, "Tell me, what are you doing here so late in the night?" King of Sword Elves immediately said, "I came here with a black-clothed man. We fought just now, but he escaped." Black-clothed man? Long Fei's gaze tightened as he thought in his heart, could it be Dark Apostle again? They're attacking so quickly. The King of Sword Elves saw the crease between Long Fei's brows and said, "That black-clothed man is very strong. In the darkness, my speed simply cannot catch up to him." He would never tell Long Fei about Liu Luoshi. Today, he was heavily injured, so he had to avenge this debt. Now, Liu Luoshi was a very important trump card in his hand. As long as the Divine Space's powerhouse descended, Liu Luoshi would be selected. At that time, he could make Divine Space Powerhouse take action. He was not a match for Long Fei, but Divine Space Powerhouse was enough to crush him. Long Fei said lightly, "Why didn't you say so earlier?" The King of Sword Elves laughed dryly, then said, "I am also a peak owner, a dignified peak king swordsman powerhouse, and I lost a black-clothed man. This matter is too embarrassing to speak of." Long Fei couldn't tell if what King of Sword Elves said was true or not. However, at least the King of Sword Elves did not threaten him at all. Long Fei glanced at King of Sword Elves, and said coldly, "Can you go back yourself?" King of Sword Elves stood up and said, "Sure." Long Fei said, "Then I won't let you go." With that, Long Fei turned and left. King of Sword Elves watched Long Fei leave with a smile on his face. When Long Fei completely disappeared, his smile became gloomy and cold. Wiping away the blood from the corner of his mouth, King of Sword Elves gritted his teeth and shouted, "Brat, let's wait and see." Returning to his residence, Phoenix walked to Long Fei's side and asked, "My darling, what's wrong?" Long Fei shook his head, "Nothing." He did not want to make Phoenix nervous again, so he did not mention the matter regarding the black-clothed person. Phoenix held onto Long Fei's arm, giggled, and said, "My darling, let's talk about the future. When are you going to bring your 108 gods to the Phoenix Valley?" Long Fei laughed, "Are you that impatient?" Phoenix nodded and replied, "Yes, yes. Aside from bringing along the 108 bodies of the 8 King Kong and the others, you must also bring along Big Sister Luoshi." Huh. Suddenly, Long Fei started to blame himself in his heart. "I was so busy that I forgot about her. Tomorrow, I will make a trip to Sword Elf Mountain." Long Fei had once promised Liu Luoshi that he would look for her the moment he entered the inner sect. Long Fei had once promised Liu Luoxi that he would look for her the moment he entered the inner sect. It's just that I've been too busy these past few days to stop. Now that he thought of Liu Luoxi, Long Fei felt that he owed him a lot. However, thinking about how he had just beaten up the King of Sword Elves, it wouldn't be good if he rushed there in the middle of the night. Tomorrow morning. I'll bring you to me tomorrow, Long Fei muttered. The next morning, Long Fei woke up early, let Fang Wanping lead the group to continue their journey. He then rushed to Sword Elf Mountain. Then there was the King of Sword Elves. It was already the latter half of the night when he had returned to the Sword Elf Mountain. Only after consuming 3 immortal grade spirit pills did he manage to recover from his injuries. Even if he didn't recuperate for half a year, it would still be difficult to recover from the injuries on his body. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. He himself was a dignified Sword Elf Mountain, and yet he was injured like this by a disciple who had just stepped into the inner sect. If this were to be known, where would he put his face? As the saying goes, it wouldn't be too late for a gentleman to exact vengeance in 10 years. However, the King of Sword Elves could not wait that long. He started to think that it would take more than 2 months before he could kill Long Fei with the help of the Divine Space Powerhouse. They had to wait until the Clan Congress returned. Moreover, Long Fei was so strong, if he participated in the Clan Congress, he would definitely get a good rank. The Great Clan Elder was the envoy of the Divine Space. If he said a few words, the Divine Space Powerhouse would definitely not make a move against Long Fei. Thinking of all these, it was even harder for him to take revenge. He was not Long Fei's match. But there were people in the Sword Elf Mountain who were. The Sword Elf Mountain had always been the strongest sect in the ancient antiquity, not because of the King of Sword Elves' cultivation nor because of the strength of the disciples. Rather, it was because there were still 3 Master S in the Sword Elf Mountain, all of whom were Powerhouse S of the Emperor Swordsman rank. And he was even the King of Sword Elves' master. If he allowed Master to take action, revenge would not take so long. King of Sword Elves entering the Sword Spirit Forbidden Grounds overnight was also the place where his 3 great masters went into seclusion. A master was immediately enraged. He hadn't even bothered to scold his own disciple for all these years. A new disciple with just a bit of strength was actually so arrogant. Meng Tu doesn't care about it, I will care about it. The white moustache drooped down his chest, and the spirited old man let out a deep sound as a sword of the Emperor appeared out of nowhere and flashed on his body. This was a characteristic of the Emperor Swordsman rank. King of Sword Elves immediately replied, "Thank you, Master." And then, the 2 of them walked out of the forbidden area. It happened to be the morning of the 2nd day. Long Fei did not come empty-handed but instead brought along a large piece of the top-quality holy source raw stone that weighed at least 5 kilograms. This kind of holy source or ore was worth more than 10,000 holy source rocks. And it was at least 5th grade. After all, he had just beaten someone up last night. Long Fei walked to the mountain gate and said, "I will have to trouble you to inform them that North Peak, Long Fei, requests an audience." North Peak. Who is it? I've never heard of such a place in ancient antiquity. No way. The 2 Sword Elf Mountain-s glanced at Long Fei, who was still wearing the outer sect disciples' clothes, and could not help but sneer. "Are you still Peak owner? Then, am I not the sect head?" "Ha ha ha. Exactly, I'm even going to be the Great Elder. Kid, this is the Sword Elf Mountain, not a place you can come to. Scram to the side." The 2 of them jeered loudly. Long Fei's anger was a little uncontrollable. He glanced at them and cursed, "Mystic." His speed shifted. His body suddenly flashed. He was too lazy to waste his breath on them and directly dashed into Sword Elf Mountain in a flash. The 2 gatekeepers only felt a gust of wind blow past, they didn't sense anything, but when they looked at Long Fei again, he was already gone. Sword Elf Mountain, the mountains were like swords. It was incomparably precipitous. However, the sharpness of the sword could be seen everywhere. The cliffs and cliffs seemed to have been created by a sword. Long Fei walked towards the peak of Sword Elf Mountain. When he arrived outside the mountain peak's gate, he was once again stopped by 2 disciples. Long Fei explained his identity. This time, it was very unexpected. They did not meet Long Fei, but asked him to wait a moment. The Sword Spirit Hall. Many disciples kneeled in front of the white-haired elder. At the same time, King of Sword Elves also kneeled on the ground. A disciple came in to report. King of Sword Elves immediately shouted in anger, "Good, you actually dare to come to Sword Elf Mountain. Master, he's not putting the Sword Elf Mountain in his eyes." King of Sword Elves never thought that Long Fei would actually dare to come to Sword Elf Mountain. What was this called? Did he seriously injure him yesterday? Do I have to do it again? Last night, no one saw that the elders and the head disciple of Sword Elf Mountain were all present. If they could beat him up again, how would he survive in the future? Ling Yuan's eyes slightly tightened, and said in a low voice, "Master, could it be because junior sister?" King of Sword Elves' eyes also tensed up as he looked at Ling Yuan and asked, "Is she done with the arrangements?" Ling Yuan nodded lightly. The corner of King of Sword Elves' mouth curled as he smiled. "As long as you've arranged everything." The white-haired ancestor growled, "I'd like to see just how strong this kid is. It's not enough to act atrociously once, but I'd like to do so a second time." Boom. The sword beam on his body exploded. Streams of Monarch's sword chi burst out, and his body flashed out like an electric sword. Rumble. 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 A series of explosions rang out, and it seemed as if the space was going to be sliced apart. All of the elders in the hall were stunned. He immediately walked to King of Sword Elves' side and asked, "Peak owner, what realm is master in now?" "Sword chi, to shatter the void, must be at least a level 5 sword emperor, right? Too strong. The master's monarch's sword chi should already be unstoppable." King of Sword Elves smiled and quickly left the hall. He couldn't wait to see the scene of Long Fei kneeling on the ground and begging for forgiveness. Rumble. The air exploded. The space between Long Fei's eyebrows tightened. Suddenly, above his head, a white-haired old man appeared. His entire body shone with a boundless sword aura. His entire being was like a god, looking down at Long Fei from above, his voice low, "You're the one that injured my disciple?" As soon as he finished, bang, 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 a series of sonic booms resounded. As he spoke, the pressure of the Emperor Swordsman rank came crashing down like thunder, causing a series of explosions beside Long Fei. Long Fei's body also sunk as his face revealed pain, and he said, "Senior, what happened yesterday was a misunderstanding. He was here to ask for someone. He couldn't be too arrogant. Moreover, where is Liu Luoshi now?" Long Fei didn't know yet. Thus, right now, he could only keep a low profile. However, the more you keep a low profile, the more arrogant they will become. White Hair Ancestor shouted and said, "A person who was seriously injured, do you think it's a misunderstanding? Then if I kill you now, it would also be a misunderstanding." Boom, boom, boom. As he spoke, the 30,000-foot-long sword energy descended. It directly hit Long Fei. Long Fei's body trembled slightly. With the power of the immortal swordsman rank, he simply could not withstand the pressure from the strongest Emperor Swordsman. Long Fei said with a heavy voice, "Senior, are you sure you want to do this?" The crushing pressure, he had to endure it. The crushing pressure, he had to endure it. Now that the sword chi was suppressing him, Long Fei would not tolerate it anymore. He directly asked, "Senior, are we really going to do this?" The aura on his body also surged slightly. Everything could be weak, one couldn't be weak, one just couldn't submit. When the White Hair Ancestor heard Long Fei's words, he felt that Long Fei was giving way to him. "Huh? Is it really going to be like this? Kid, I want to be like this." Rumble. 100,000-foot-long sword chi poured down, covering Long Fei like a huge net of sword chi. Every single sword chi was the power of the Sword Emperor. The Emperor's sword intent on the White Hair Ancestor was also exceptionally strong. This time, he wanted Long Fei to kneel on the ground. Let Long Fei know, it was not his turn to behave atrociously. The sword hummed like thunder. Long Fei looked up and saw the golden-colored Emperor sword chi piercing towards him. He cursed angrily, "I can't tolerate my temper anymore." He was going to apologize or something. From the looks of it, there was no need at all. "Lousy has given you face, right? Long Fei let out a heavy cry in his heart. Fourth level ancient dragon body. Roar. The dragon's roar shook as the dragon's might burst forth. Thousands of Emperor's sword chi instantly issued out a moaning sound. Long Fei straightened his body. He stared at the white hair ancestor in midair and said, "Don't blame me for not giving you the chance." White hair ancestor felt the power released from Long Fei's body, his heart sank, and the 10,000 sword chi moaned, as though they were about to collapse. How could a mere boy have such power? He was extremely shocked. However, he had cultivated for tens of thousands of years. How could he allow the Sword Emperor to be crushed by a brat when he was only at the 5th level? For a dignified strongest Emperor swordsman like him, if he was stomped over by a kid from the immortal swordsman rank, how could he face anyone? Immediately, white hair ancestor frowned. He started chanting, holding onto the sword technique. He shouted out, "Go!" Buzz. A golden sword flew out from his body. Sword of the Emperor. The intent sword intent of the Emperor swordsman rank was just like a holy artifact. After training for a long time, this kind of sword intent had condensed into something material. Moreover, it was even a sword that possessed spiritual awareness. A sword that shared the same thoughts as the white hair ancestor. This was also the strongest power of the strongest Emperor swordsman. The sword of the Emperor soared into the sky as the sword chi flourished, directly enveloping the entire Sword Elf Mountain, and filling it with an endless amount of sword intent. Master's Sword of the Emperor. He actually summoned his Sword of the Emperor, then that brat. The next second will probably turn to dust, right? This is for that brat's soul flying. The mighty master. There were very few strongest Emperor swordsmen south in the first place. They were incomparably strong and now they could release their strongest powers. If that were to happen, would Long Fei still have a chance of survival? King of Sword Elves also sneered, "Revenge is a dish best served 10 years. This father will never take revenge overnight. Kid, the next second will be the day you die." If he was able to use the Master's Sword of the Emperor, would Long Fei still be able to live? At the same time, the entire ancient antiquity trembled slightly as they felt an intense sword chi wreaking havoc. Main Hall. Great Clan Elder Meng Tu looked up into the sky, his gaze becoming tense. The 3 great elders of Sword Elf Mountain have come out? This sword chi. The sword of the Emperor have been released. What are you planning to do? Meng Tu was secretly surprised. Sensing the surrounding sword chi, he thought for a moment, then said, "Someone, let's go see what's happening in Sword Elf Mountain." Sword Elf Mountain's Supreme Elder has come out? Damn, this sword chi. Aren't the 3 great elders in seclusion? Why did you suddenly come out of seclusion? Has something big happened? Suddenly, many people rushed to the Sword Elf Mountain. After all, the Supreme Elder coming out was a big deal, and the moment he came out he released his Sword of the Emperor, which was even more amazing. However, no one knew that white hair ancestor used Sword of the Emperor to kill people. Kid, just tremble. White hair ancestor bellowed as he moved his idea, cut. The Sword of the Emperor was like a thick bolt of lightning, heavily chopping at the top of Long Fei's head. Hualala, hualala, hualala. As if the sky had been cut open, a vertical black slit appeared in the sky. It was the cut of the Sword of the Emperor. This power was simply too great. Long Fei raised his eyes slightly, seeing the Sword of the Emperor slashing at him, his mouth hooked up into a smile, and said, "This is the so-called Emperor swordsman rank? That's all? That seems to be the case. Completely despised. Moreover, below the 4th level of ancient dragon body, Sword of the Emperor was obviously not enough. What kind of power was the ancient dragon body? The strength of the divine space, a mere strongest Emperor swordsman? It was not enough. Kid, don't you dare be so arrogant." White hair ancestor's eyes widened until they were round, and his long white hair started to sway. The Emperor Sword. Destroy. The sword slashed down. The aura on Long Fei's body shook. Boom. A stream of chi exploded out from his body, but he did not move. He just stood there, not even bothering to look at the Sword of the Emperor above him. Rumble. His strength exploded outwards. Golden rays of light shot out in all directions. It cut onto Long Fei's head, but not a single strand of his hair was damaged. Furthermore, the sword of the Emperor was still half a meter away from Long Fei's head. It was completely blocked by the invisible force from Long Fei's body. It could not break the defense. White Hair Ancestor was completely dumbfounded. How could this be? Impossible. He's just a disciple in the immortal sword realm. Even if he has a divine ability, he can't do something like this. The realm is everything. White Hair Ancestor's pupils constricted as he gritted his teeth so hard that they crackled loudly. His entire person seemed to have been played by Long Fei. He flew into a rage. The idea moved, and the sword of the Emperor flew up. Ah! White Hair Ancestor bellowed in rage, as the energy around his body exploded outwards, enveloping everything within 1,000 li of his sword chi. This time, his power was even more tyrannical. They would gather the power of 10,000 kilometers. Moreover, the entire Sword Elf Mountain began to shake. The Sword Elf Mountain was a huge sword in the first place, but every part of his body had powerful sword intent. He didn't believe it. He didn't believe that Long Fei could block it again. Whoosh! Absorbing 5,000 li of sword intent, the sword of the Emperor soared into the sky. Following that, the White Hair Ancestor's body moved, and he directly flew towards the sword of the Emperor. One with the sword. Kid, let's see how you're going to block this. Rumble. The heavens and earth were moved. The sword chi rushed towards Long Fei like a stomp of the sky. Long Fei gave a cold laugh, and said, "You're still only at this level of strength. If you can injure a single strand of my hair, you win. Still no movement. Just stand there and let you be strong." When the sword of the Emperor slashed down, Long Fei did not move at all. Looking at the shocked White Hair Ancestor, Long Fei grinned and said, "Now, it's my turn, right? Heh. The defensive power released by the rank 4 dragon's body did not waver in the slightest. The defensive power released by the rank 4 dragon's body did not waver in the slightest. At this moment, White Hair Ancestor was stunned. He was completely stupefied. Looking at Long Fei who was below him, he shook his head and said with a trembling body, "No, impossible. Impossible. Impossible." He didn't believe it at all. But reality was reality. The power of his monarch sword could not break Long Fei's defense. He is the Emperor Swordsman rank. The peak powerhouse in the mortal world. He couldn't even break the defense of a disciple of the immortal swordsman rank. He was beginning to doubt his own strength. Was he really a Emperor Swordsman rank? Whether his opponent was a immortal swordsman rank or not. White Hair Ancestor looked at Long Fei in astonishment. His eyes were filled with astonishment, as if he was looking at a monster. At this time, the corner of Long Fei's mouth lifted slightly, revealing a cold smile. "You're finished, now it's my turn, right?" Huh! White Hair Ancestor was startled. He did not understand what Long Fei meant and repeated, "It's your turn? What's your turn?" In his mind, Long Fei only knew how to defend. As for attack, how strong would a disciple of the immortal swordsman rank be? Immediately, White Hair Ancestor asked, "Kid, what divine ability do you have to protect yourself?" "Yes. You must have some divine space-s holy artifact protecting you. Only this kind of explanation can my sword of the Emperor not hurt you. As for your strength, what power do you, a disciple of the immortal swordsman rank, have?" "Your power can hurt me." White Hair Ancestor did not believe that Long Fei had any other powerful attacks. He only thought that Long Fei had defense. "Can't hurt you? Let's see how I'll torture this dog." Long Fei's gaze tensed up as he released the power of a level 4 ancient dragon body once again. Clenching both of his fists, his right leg trembled. Bam! He leapt up from the ground. He flew straight up into the air, right above White Hair Ancestor's body. White Hair Ancestor's pupils constricted, and his clothes began to make explosive sounds. He released the power of the Emperor Swordsman rank and instantly formed a chi shield. A power visible to the naked eye. It was like a magic shield, thick enough to cover his body. This was his strongest defense. "Brat, come." White Hair Ancestor roared. His attack could not harm Long Fei at all. He wanted to let Long Fei know, Long Fei's attack could not harm him at all. He let out a furious roar. However, Long Fei did not even look at him. He moved. One punch. Boom. It directly hit the white hair ancestor's shield. Crack. Hualala. The shield shattered like an eggshell, falling down one by one and turning into nothingness. White hair ancestor's body sank slightly. Before Long Fei's punch, he still had 100% confidence that Long Fei wouldn't be able to injure him, but that one punch had directly destroyed his defense. Not only that, his mind was also greatly shaken. Ah! He bellowed once more, intending to reform the shattered shield. However, Long Fei didn't even give him a chance. One punch to break the shield. The second punch followed. He punched white hair ancestor in the chest. Bam! Phut! His body caved in and blood spurted from his mouth. His body also plummeted down like a broken kite, causing white hair ancestor's expression to turn ugly. His heart was twisting. How could this be? I can't break the defense, but he can easily hurt me. How could this be? He could not understand what was going on. The disciples and elders of the sword spirits were all stupefied and stood rooted to the spot, their mouths wide open so that a duck egg could fit inside. He was stupefied. Had been completely stunned by Long Fei. The king of sword elves was especially serious. He kept saying in his heart, "Illusion, illusion, this is an illusion. It's impossible for Long Fei to be a match for Master, this is an illusion, it's not true." He could not believe what he was seeing. He thought that no matter how strong Long Fei was, he would never be a match for the Emperor Swordsman rank. But now, it was a complete crushing. Just like he did last night. Be it offense or defense, they were all being completely crushed by Long Fei. What was wrong with this world? Isn't the Emperor Swordsman rank stronger? His mind was in a mess. Long Fei didn't stop there after his punch had heavily injured white hair ancestor. His body descended, and without waiting for white hair ancestor to completely fall to the ground, he used his leg as a whip and swept it downwards with a heavy kick. Bam! Hualala! It was as if the air was being sucked out, and an ear-piercing sound exploded. White hair ancestor's body caved in and he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood, then started falling down rapidly. Rumble. It landed right in the center of the plaza outside the Sword Spirit Hall. A deep crater was created. The hole was filled with cracks. White hair ancestor lied in the middle of the pit, his entire body was covered in blood as he stared lifelessly at the sky. As he watched Long Fei fall to the ground, his body trembled. He was scared. He was completely terrified. He didn't have the slightest temper now. Long Fei landed, coldly looked at white hair ancestor and said, "I gave you a chance, but you always think you're so awesome. Is the Emperor Swordsman rank amazing? The Emperor Swordsman rank can act tough in front of me? Huh? Abusing you like a dog, understand?" White hair ancestor did not dare to refute him. It was really just as Long Fei had said. He was oppressed like a dog by Long Fei, he really did not even have the chance to resist. He wasn't a match at all. It was as if he was a 3-year-old child being taught a lesson by an adult brute. White hair ancestor was subdued by Long Fei, he did not dare to say a single word. Because the more powerhouse understood the importance of life. He was afraid that Long Fei would punch him again, and he would be done for. However, he didn't dare speak, but King of Sword Elves was furious. She asked heavily, "Long Fei, you dare to hit Sword Elf Mountain hard? You want to kill Master? You really have a lot of guts." Long Fei raised his gaze, looked at King of Sword Elves, and said, "I had originally wanted to come over and apologize. After all, I hurt you quite badly last night. But now I realize that the lesson I taught you last night was not enough." The center of King of Sword Elves' brows tightened as Long Fei opened the wound. The surrounding elders began to discuss quietly as well. King of Sword Elves was also even more furious, and said, "Brat, you injured Master, you won't be able to continue staying here." Long Fei smiled lightly and said, "Oh? It's not up to you whether I can stay or not, right? Why? Do you still want to fight me? Fine, fine, fine. Since it's like this, I'll just say it clearly. You can count me as one Sword Elf Mountain. Whether it's a duel or gang fight, I, Long Fei, will take it. Bring it on. Long Fei was furious. Since it's like this, then we shall choose the Sword Elf Mountain. The moment his bad temper flared, Long Fei immediately wanted to pick the entire Sword Elf Mountain. The moment his bad temper flared, Long Fei immediately wanted to pick the entire Sword Elf Mountain. You are arrogant. How dare you? Are you cocky? Come, 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 come. Long Fei's words were very arrogant. It was so wild that every disciple of the Sword Elf Mountainess felt the fingers of every elder. Sword Elf Mountain, first peak of ancient antiquity. Every disciple was filled with honor, and every elder was a level above others. Now, someone was actually going to choose the Sword Elf Mountain? Anger, anger. Every one of their eyes were tightly locked onto Long Fei, with their eyes blazing with fire. King of Sword Elves' pupils looked like flames, as he said in a heavy voice, Long Fei, you're too arrogant. Long Fei laughed. Right, I am arrogant, what about it? Unconvinced? Come up if you don't like it. See if I'll beat you up like a dog. Long Fei was quite arrogant. He was originally just apologizing, but now, I just want to shut up all the people from Sword Elf Mountain. King of Sword Elves clenched his fists tightly, but he did not dare to step forward. White Hair Ancestor also looked up at the sky. He didn't feel good about it, but he knew that in this world, whoever had the toughest fist would become the king. Long Fei could crush him. Who in the ancient antiquity could stop him now? The other two senior brothers? Or was it the sect leader who had isolated himself for 100 years? Long Fei's eyes swept across King of Sword Elves' angered expression and said, if you don't dare to come up, then stop showing off, understand? King of Sword Elves said solemnly, Brat, this is the ancient antiquity, it's not a place for you to do whatever you want. Long Fei said, I will do whatever I want, what about it? The King of Sword Elves was furious, you. Long Fei said, what about me? I said it already, whoever isn't convinced, come up. Each of you Sword Elf Mountains won. I'll take on the group fight. Come on. Rumble. With a heavy sound, Long Fei's voice exploded within the hearts of every single Sword Elf Mountain disciple, as though this provocation was an insult. They felt very uncomfortable in their hearts. However, none of them moved. Even the White Hair Ancestor was not Long Fei's match, even the peak owner did not dare to make a move, who else would dare to? Who could move? If he went forward, he would only be looking for a beating. King of Sword Elves was so angry that his face turned red. However, at this moment, whoosh, whoosh, a purple long sword sliced through the air towards him. Another long sword made of blue light sliced through the air towards them. One was purple and the other was blue. The two swords carried an incredibly powerful sword aura, causing all the swords in Sword Elf Mountain to tremble. He couldn't control it. My sword. Hualala. He pressed his hand down, but he still couldn't help but tremble as if he was going to unsheath it. The sword is out of control. My sword. My. Whiz. A sword flew out. Immediately after, the swords on the disciples flew out of their sheaths one after another. They were completely unable to control them, and even if they had to suppress the sword intent, it would be of no use. It was just like the two violet and blue longswords in the sky, which had an endless attractive force. First it was the disciples, then it was the elders. Many of them were king swordsman rank, but they were currently unable to control their own swords well, and were sent flying one by one. In mid-air. As the sword descended, step by step, it floated in mid-air. In just half a minute, it formed a huge sword rain formation. Floating above Long Fei's head. Just a moment ago, the White Hair Ancestor had released 10,000 sword intents, but this time, it was the sword hanging in the air. Compared to the 10,000 sword intents from before, these longswords were even more powerful. This was because these were the swords of others. In order to control these swords, one's comprehension of sword intent had already surpassed that of others. The sword formations had been assembled. Purple and blue swords blurred. Two silhouettes appeared. Purple hair, blue hair. Two old men. Their auras were like a peerless divine sword, and their cultivation was even higher than White Hair Ancestors. King of Sword Elves' gaze tensed up. He immediately knelt down. Master. Many disciples and elders of the Sword Elf Mountainess also kneeled down. Welcome, Master out. There were 3 Master in the Sword Elf Mountain. White hair, blue hair, purple hair. These 3 were all Master, but their identities were completely different. White hair ancestor was his master, and blue hair ancestor was his master. Old ancestors with purple hair has lived for at least 10,000 years. The sword cheese on his body seemed to be in control of the world, as all the long swords rose and fell with his aura. The aura was completely different. White hair ancestor also climbed out of the pit with much difficulty before kneeling on the ground. Welcome out, Master. The 2 of them descended. Shua. He landed on the ground. The long sword also fell. Hua la la. Hua la la. Hundreds of swords descended vertically, all slicing through the sky, creating hundreds of cracks. That scene. It was incomparably shocking. King of Sword Elves was ecstatic. I was not a match for them. Now that the 2 great ancestors have come out, kid, let's see how long you can continue being so arrogant for. The sword array enveloped Long Fei. However, Long Fei did not feel the slightest bit of panic, nor did he feel the slightest bit of fear. In an instant, blue hair ancestor took a step forward, instantly appearing in front of Long Fei. Long Fei showed no fear, and said indifferently, "That's right." Blue hair ancestor squinted as sword intent surged out from his body. Wung, wung, wung wung. The sound of a sword exploding could be heard. It was incomparably ear-piercing. Within the sword formation, Long Fei felt as if his surroundings were filled with roaring thunder. Blue hair ancestor said indifferently, "You will have to pay the price for your arrogance." As soon as he finished, blue hair ancestor stood in front of Long Fei and his eyebrows tightened. The sword intent from his body shot straight up into the sky. Boom! An enormous blue divine sword. It was hundreds of meters high. It chopped down towards the top of Long Fei's head. Hualala, hualala. As if the sky had collapsed, the space above Long Fei continued to shatter. This power. It was too outrageous. This was simply destructive. To be able to cultivate the sword intent to such an extent, it was sufficient to show that this old fellow was extremely abnormal. However, no one was more abnormal than Long Fei. With a thought, he shouted out, "Level 5 ancient dragon body, open." He stood there motionlessly. "You want to kill me? Fine, then Lousy will kill you." He's not standing still. He must have been scared silly. Ha ha ha. Kid, tremble. This sword intent is too strong, it should be able to turn him into dust. Ha ha ha. Kill him. Kill him. Many disciples and elders clamored. However, old ancestors with purple hair's pupils became sinister as he felt the power in Long Fei's body suddenly become stronger. However, it was too late to stop him now, and he wanted to know how strong Long Fei's strength had become. The sword slashed down. When it landed half a meter above Long Fei's head, the gigantic blue sword stopped moving, and did not go down at all. Moreover, Long Fei frowned, and with a burst of power, the dragon roared angrily. "Catcher!" The blue sword shattered. Powerful attack. Powerful attack. A strong sword intent. An enormous sword. Long Fei didn't even give it a glance as he stood there and let you cut him down. He said so. In the entire ancient antiquity, if anyone could injure a single hair on his head, it would count as him. So what if you're a master? He still didn't think much of it. Under the furious slash, Long Fei's body did not even move. Zhong Xian frowned. The blue sword shattered. It fell to the ground. Blue hair ancestor was stupefied. His strength was much stronger than the white hair ancestor, but he was still unable to break Long Fei's defense. It was simply unimaginable. King of Sword Elves' pupils constricted as he fiercely shouted, "Damn!" He thought that this move would be able to split Long Fei into two, but Long Fei still stood there unscathed, and had shattered blue hair ancestor's sword intent. The entire audience was in an uproar. Both of his eyes looked at Long Fei in shock. Blue hair ancestor stared at Long Fei and asked, "Who are you?" He did not believe that a disciple would possess such a strong defensive power. Impossible. Long Fei's lips curled up as he faintly smiled and said, "I'm your father." Blue Hair Ancestor's pupils constricted as he roared, "You're courting death." He was utterly enraged. The strength in his body was like thousands of rockets exploding out, reaching the peak. But, without waiting for Blue Hair Ancestor's strength to form an attack again, Long Fei raised his right hand and slapped Blue Hair Ancestor's face ruthlessly. Emperor Swordsman rank. Whether it was attack or defense, everything happened instantaneously, like a subconscious brain reaction. Long Fei slapped him. Blue Hair Ancestor's defense was also instantly released, forming a gigantic blue air shield. The thickness of air shield S were around 10 meters. This defense. It was unbreakable. Blue Hair Ancestor also laughed complacently, "Little bastard, just based on your attack." Hualala. Without even finishing his words, the defensive air shield he released shattered. All of them shattered the moment they touched Long Fei's palm. Long Fei's palm, that was as big as a plate, fiercely slapped down, accurately hitting Blue Hair Ancestor on the cheek. Pa! It was incomparably loud. Blue Hair Ancestor's pupils constricted and his body fell to the ground. Bam! His head hit the ground heavily. He didn't move at all. Yi Zichen fell to the ground with a slap. He couldn't move at all. Fut! Master! Bullshit! Long Fei let out a disdainful snort, coldly looked at the old ancestors with purple hair, and laughed coldly. Next. His voice sounded like death in hell. It was like a reaper harvesting the dead. Blue Hair Ancestor, who had cultivated for more than 9,000 years, was knocked to the ground with a single slap. How abnormal was this? Was he even human? Was this really the immortal swordsman rank? Was Master's Emperor Swordsman rank fake? What was going on? All of them were stunned as their brains were short-circuited. King of Sword Elves' heart floated up to his throat, he didn't even dare to breathe. White Hair Ancestor had even exchanged 2 moves. However, Blue Hair Ancestor was immediately slapped onto the ground, and he didn't know if he was dead or alive. How terrifying was this Long Fei? What realm was he at? His gaze slowly moved to the front of old ancestors with purple hair. He was a 10,000-year-old monster. He was the one who created the Sword Elf Mountain, who was on par with the sect master in terms of strength. However, at this moment, King of Sword Elves was not his match either. Because he watched as his disciple was knocked over with a single slap, but he didn't move at all. Indeed, old ancestors with purple hair was stunned. He had never felt this kind of shock before. He was so strong that he could not speak. Standing in place, he looked at Long Fei, and their gazes met. S' heart tensed up, and his body involuntarily trembled. At this moment, in his mind floated a huge dragon head. In front of the dragon's head, he was as minuscule as an ant, unable to move. The dragon head could swallow him at any time. This feeling was not caused by the pressure, but was rather the difference in strength. Old ancestors with purple hair's mind started to tremble. Long Fei called out again, "Who else? Who's unhappy? Come." Long Fei became even more arrogant. With the power of the dragon's body, his temperament slightly changed as he became more manic. He looked down at the world from a disdainful angle, wanting to beat anyone who was unhappy. The entire arena was completely silent, not daring to make a single sound. Furthermore, none of them dared to look Long Fei in the eye. Long Fei said indifferently, "Just now, this old fellow said that craziness comes with a price. What is the price? What is the price? Can I trouble you guys to come out and let me know what the price is?" Crushing. A suffocating pressure. King of Sword Elves was screaming in his heart, hoping that old ancestors with purple hair would help him. Go, 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 hit him. However, old ancestors with purple hair did not make a move, but instead said respectfully, "Sir, we were wrong." A soft sound was heard. He was convinced. The moment he finished speaking, all the disciples present were stunned. Soon after, they understood in their hearts that even old ancestors with purple hair would not be a match for Long Fei. Long Fei's eyes swept across them, and looked at the swords floating in the sky. "Are you convinced?" If you refuse to accept it, then just come at me. I said that if you can't fight me alone, then you can gang up on me. Old ancestors with purple hair let out a heavy breath. All the swords fell to the ground. As soon as his aura was retracted, he turned into an ordinary old man. In his entire life, he had never submitted to someone this way. He had never been this afraid, but now, he had no choice but to give in. When he said, "Sir, we were wrong," he used his entire lifetime's worth of strength. Even if he had met the powerhouse of the divine space back then, he had never done such a thing. However, he had to say it. Because of the difference. Because he was not a match for Long Fei at all. Long Fei lost interest and said, "You're convinced like this? I even want to gang up on you, how boring." King of Sword Elves was weeping blood. Long Fei looked at his angry eyes and said, "Lord Sword, you seem to be a little unconvinced." Huh. King of Sword Elves' gaze relaxed as he hurriedly said, "I submit." Even the master was not his match. What could he do no matter how angry he got? Looking for a beating? However, he hated Long Fei to the core. This matter would definitely spread out, and his Sword Elf Mountain would become the laughingstock of the ancient antiquity. Thinking of this, under his sleeve, his fists couldn't help but tighten slightly. How boring. How boring. Long Fei's face was filled with displeasure, as he let out a long breath, and said, "Since all of you are convinced, then forget it. Lord Sword, I'm here today because I want to ask you to be alone." King of Sword Elves' eyes trembled slightly as he said, "Please speak." Captain Long Fei said, "I would like to ask if you have a senior sister among your disciples named Liu Luoshi. I came here today because I want her." As expected, King of Sword Elves tensed up, the corners of his mouth slightly hooked up as he said, "Liu Luoshi, she is indeed my disciple, but he's not in the Sword Elf Mountain right now." She's not in Sword Elf Mountain. King of Sword Elves did not reveal any flaws, and spoke as if it was true. She's not in Sword Elf Mountain. King of Sword Elves did not reveal any flaws, and spoke as if it was true. Not here. Long Fei's eyes turned sinister as he stared at King of Sword Elves. His eyes contained the power of a dragon, giving the King of Sword Elves an incomparably powerful pressure. King of Sword Elves' mind was trembling, his body was also trembling slightly as he said, "Captain Long, she is indeed not in Sword Elf Mountain. She went to train hard for Clan Congress. I really did not lie to you. The Sword Elf Mountain's mission records have recorded this." King of Sword Elves revealed a painful expression. Pain would allow him to conceal his own lie even more easily. He would definitely not hand Liu Luoshi over to Long Fei. Long Fei had trampled his Sword Elf Mountain to such an extent, how could his King of Sword Elves raise his head to look at others in the future? Even if the master was not his opponent, he had to find an opportunity to take revenge. Now, Liu Luoshi was the only card he could use. He wanted to use Liu Luoshi to recognize the divine space powerhouse. He wanted to use Liu Luoshi's master's identity to ask the divine space powerhouse to help him get rid of Long Fei. He believed that his status as master would definitely gain the approval of the divine space powerhouse. The master of the Emperor Swordsman rank is not a match for you, so the powerhouse of the divine space must be able to kill you, right? King of Sword Elves' heart was gloomy. He was waiting for the moment the divine space arrived at ancient antiquity. He went to train. Long Fei didn't see anything on King of Sword Elves' face, and only mumbled, "Didn't I tell her to wait for me?" King of Sword Elves said, "When she returns, I will definitely let her go to North Peak immediately. She won't hold up anything regarding Captain Long." Old ancestors with purple hair also reminded him, then his disciple really going to train arduously? King of Sword Elves' gaze turned and he said respectfully to old ancestors with purple hair, reporting to master, "She really went to train hard. Liu Luoshi has a high talent in the way of the sword, and has always been very strong. My Sword Elf Mountain enjoys glory." Old ancestors with purple hair said, "You really didn't lie to me." Long Fei was too strong. He did not want to provoke them. To him, provoking such a fiend was not good for the Sword Elf Mountain. Moreover, Powerhouse could not afford to offend him. He didn't want to cause any more trouble, and that was why he gave in. King of Sword Elves said, Disciple does not dare. Old ancestors with purple hair looked at Long Fei and said, Captain Long, look. Long Fei hugged both of his hands, and said, since you're not here, then I'll pay a visit next time. However, Lord Sword, if I find out that you're lying to me. Long Fei's pupils contracted rapidly. The aura around his body suddenly turned sinister. His right hand moved, and a stream of qi shot out from his palm. A powerful force enveloped a 1,000-year-old pine tree 100 meters away. Immediately, the dense pine needle leaves all fell off and turned into dust the instant before they landed. The 1,000-year-old ancient pine also rapidly withered and then rotted away. This power. It had directly caused its life to be cut off. Old ancestors with purple hair felt a chill in his heart, and could not help but say, what a strong inner strength, a strength that can cut off one's life force. Powerful, powerful. All of the Sword Elf Mountainess present were also shocked senseless. The King of Sword Elves' expression did not change, and said, Captain Long, how could I dare lie to you? As long as she returns, I will personally send her to North Peak. Although he said this, his heart was itching with hatred. This ancient pine was his favorite, he had planted it himself, nurtured it, and now turned it into powder. Furthermore, Long Fei's attack this time was a threat to him. He was extremely displeased in his heart, but he endured it very well. On the surface, he did not seem to be angry at all. The King of Sword Elves was very clear on the principle of not holding back. Long Fei took a glance at the Sword Spirit Hall, and looked around. His heart sank. Luoshi, where are you bitterly cultivating? He turned around and left. There was nothing he could do. The Sword Elf Mountain was too big and there were so many people, it was impossible for them to sense Liu Luoshi's aura. Moreover, he couldn't possibly kill everyone in Sword Elf Mountain, right? He still had to stay in the ancient antiquity. If he really killed all the disciples of the Sword Elf Mountain, then he wouldn't have to stay here anymore. With all these, Long Fei could only give up. Leaving Sword Elf Mountain. In the dark, Liu Luoshi sobbed silently as tears streamed down her face. However, she could not make a single sound, and her body could not even move a single inch. From the corner, she could see everything that had just happened. She saw Long Fei. However, but she could not shout out, because she was tightly sealed by the power of Ling Yuan's body. Furthermore, she didn't dare to move at all, because she had Long Fei's flesh and blood in her stomach. Even if she wanted to rush out and break out, but if she hurt the baby inside her, she would hate herself. Thus, she could only watch as Long Fei left. Her heart was happy, but it was also painful, because Long Fei cared about her, and she was happy. And because of Long Fei's departure, she was in pain. The entire Sword Elf Mountain was silent. Those who were looked down upon by them were squashed by the outer sect disciples who had just entered the inner sect. The entire Sword Elf Mountain was silent. He had never raised his head like this before. Even the two Emperor Swordsman rank S were crushed. I'm leaving. A disciple reported to Long Fei that he had left Sword Elf Mountain. Only then did King of Sword Elves take a deep breath, clenched his fists tightly and said, Long Fei, this old man will remember this grudge. If this grudge is not avenged, this old man will not take revenge. Old ancestors with purple hair's gaze darkened, and he said, you'd better not provoke this person again. King of Sword Elves said, Master, he caused Sword Elf Mountain's face to be swept across the ground. Since when has our Sword Elf Mountain ever suffered such a loss? I refuse to accept this. Old ancestors with purple hair said, some people, even if you don't accept it, you can't. He is causing Sword Elf Mountain's face to be swept across the ground, but his strength is so strong that you cannot even imagine it. This is the world of the Powerhouse. Powerhouse can do whatever he wants, and even if the sect master comes out of seclusion today, he won't be able to be stopped. The world we live in is merely a mortal world. And him. From the divine space, he is a god in our eyes. In his eyes, we are but mortals, how can we fight against him? I know what you want to do, it's no use. Don't provoke him again, you can't afford the consequences. Old ancestors with purple hair could tell that the power in Long Fei's body was not the power of the mortal world. If it wasn't the mortal world, Then it must be the divine space. They, the mortals, could not afford to offend such a person. King of Sword Elves' eyes slightly tightened, and said, "Master, you're saying that he is a reincarnated body of divine space powerhouse?" The old ancestors with purple hair said, "That's right, and it's even the powerful ancient clan of divine space." King of Sword Elves asked, "Ancient clan? What race?" Old ancestors with purple hair thought for a moment, then said indifferently, "If I'm not wrong, it should be the dragon race." "Dragon clan?" King of Sword Elves' eyes tensed up, his fists clenched tightly. "No matter what race you are, I will do everything in my power to kill you." The mortal world didn't know what had happened to the divine space. The mortal world didn't know what had happened to the divine space. No matter what it was, it would take a very long time to find out, so whether it was the old ancestors with purple hair or the King of Sword Elves, neither of them knew about the fact that the dragon race was almost annihilated. They did not know that the Emperor Xian was offering a bounty on Long Fei's head. If King of Sword Elves knew about this, he would definitely be even more lively. As long as they could find out the power of the Xians in the mortal world and report it, the Xians' army would probably rush over quickly. The King of Sword Elves still wanted to use Liu Luoxi's identity and get to know the divine space powerhouse, then use his identity as Master Liu Luoxi to plead the divine space powerhouse to suppress Long Fei, to take revenge. As long as we wait another 2 months, divine space powerhouse will arrive at ancient antiquity. He had already heard from the great clan elder that a divine space powerhouse had set her eyes on Liu Luoxi and she did not even need to undergo the test to enter the divine space. It was his only hope. A reincarnated powerhouse of the divine space? Humph. Reincarnated cultivation. Your cultivation cannot compete with the divine space powerhouse. Long Fei, you can wait for your death 2 months later. The King of Sword Elves said fiercely. In a secret room. King of Sword Elves looked at Liu Luoxi. Ling Yuan stood at the side. Liu Luoxi also looked at King of Sword Elves. The King of Sword Elves said indifferently, "Luoxi, you've seen everything that happened just now. He, an outer disciple who had just entered the sect, is already this arrogant. Not only does he not put your master in his eyes, he also severely injured 2 Masters. As their disciple, can you endure this?" Liu Luoxi's face was calm, there were no ripples in his heart, and he did not answer King of Sword Elves. Instead, he said, "Master, you have seen everything that happened just now, and this was him retracting his killing intent. Otherwise, you would not be standing here right now." King of Sword Elves' gaze darkened as he said, "Are you threatening me?" Liu Luoxi said, "It's not a threat, but a simple truth. Long Fei is someone you cannot afford to offend." Giggle. King of Sword Elves' eyes instantly burst with rage, staring straight at Liu Luoxi. In an instant. Pa. A slap landed on Liu Luoxi's face, and with a dark voice, he said, "Eating things that are inside and outside, do you still know your surname? If it wasn't for me cultivating you personally, would you have reached your current level of cultivation?" A slap landed on Liu Luoxi's face, the mark of his 5 fingers could clearly be seen. Blood hung from the corner of Liu Luoxi's mouth, but she was not angry. She still maintained a calm expression and said, "I relied on myself to have my current cultivation, and not because of you. There's more. What I said just now was all true. You don't even know Long Fei, you don't even know what kind of person he is. You have no idea how strong he is either. If he finds out that you slapped me just now, even if you hide in hell, he'll still let you use your soul flying." Liu Luoxi was very unyielding. She wasn't humble just because she was her master. If her master and Long Fei were to make a choice, she would not hesitate to choose Long Fei. Not to mention, this master had never taught him anything. The muscles at the corner of King of Sword Elves' eyes twitched, his expression was extremely sinister, and the energy within his body continued to surge. He really wanted to kill Liu Luoxi with a palm strike right now. But he held back. Liu Luoxi was his trump card. "From what you've said, I can chop you apart with a single palm." The King of Sword Elves sneered sinisterly and said, "But I won't. I still want to use your beauty to marry the powerhouse of the divine space. I want to use the power of the divine space powerhouse to kill Long Fei." Liu Luoshi said, I will not marry the powerhouse of the divine space. Ha ha ha. King of Sword Elves laughed out loud and said, you said that you won't marry her, so you won't marry her? You probably don't know yet. A divine space powerhouse has already taken a fancy to you, and what did you tell the great clan elder last time? You are willing to enter the divine space. This is a form of acquiescence. After clan congress finishes, when the divine space arrives, even if you don't want to marry, you have to. At that time, if Long Fei dares to make a move to stop him, divine space powerhouse will kill him. Ha ha ha. No matter how strong Long Fei is, can he be as strong as the gods in the divine space? That's all. Do you know who the divine powerhouse is? He is the powerhouse, and the Xians is also the #1 clan in the divine space. How could your Long Fei be a match for the Xians? Ha ha ha. Liu Luoshi, you better obediently accept your fate. Otherwise, you might die at that time, and your Long Fei will definitely die as well. Ha ha ha. King of Sword Elves laughed out loud. He firmly believed that no matter how strong Long Fei was, he would not be a match for the divine space powerhouse, and even more so not. Liu Luoshi was stunned. When she heard the two words Xians, her heart sank. He immediately thought of Emperor Xian, Long Fei's mortal enemy. Her heart trembled slightly as tears welled up in her eyes. She thought to herself, why? Long Fei, why have you had so many setbacks in your life? Seeing the tears in Liu Luoshi's eyes, the King of Sword Elves became even happier and said, if you listen to me obediently, I guarantee that you won't die. Liu Luoshi did not speak. She was in pain now. Because Long Fei's entire life was incomparably difficult. She felt that she could not help Long Fei in any way, and could only be a burden to Long Fei. Seeing Liu Luoshi's wooden expression, King of Sword Elves also lost all interest, and said to Ling Yuan, I'll leave her to you, take care of her for me. Whether or not you can enter the divine space will also depend on her. Ling Yuan replied, disciple understands. The King of Sword Elves nodded his head in satisfaction and walked out of the secret room. After a long time, Liu Luoshi recovered and muttered, I want to go out, I want to go see Long Fei, I want to go out. He turned around and ran to the exit of the secret room. However, Ling Yuan moved slightly, immediately stopping Liu Luoshi and said, Junior sister, you cannot leave. Liu Luoshi looked at Ling Yuan and said, Senior brother, let me out, I'm begging you. Please. Let me out, I really have something very important to tell him. Xians arrived at the ancient antiquity. Liu Luoshi could not imagine what would happen. She had to let Long Fei know in advance. She had to make Long Fei quickly leave this place. Otherwise, once Xians knew of Long Fei's whereabouts, he would definitely not let him go. Ling Yuan said, No, I won't let you out. Plop. Liu Luoshi immediately knelt down, and said, Senior brother has knelt down for you, I have never begged you for anything, I beg you, please let me out. As long as you agree, I am willing to agree to any request you have. He knelt down on the ground. Liu Luoshi had never done this before. Because, right now, she was extremely worried that Long Fei's situation was really too dangerous. Seeing Liu Luoshi like this, he hated Long Fei even more than the latter, to the extent where he hated Long Fei even more than the King of Sword Elves. His hatred was born from love. If Liu Luoshi had not chosen Long Fei, he would not have done this. Now, Ling Yuan laughed coldly and said, You will never see him again in your entire life. It was already morning when he returned to North Peak. In the morning, 2 more outer court disciples couldn't bear to leave. No one would be willing to stay in this desolate North Peak. The remaining 8 people also felt that there was no difference between being in the outer sect and being here. They were all just waiting to die. The outer sect had sect missions every day, so at least they didn't have to do those cumbersome missions here. Also, no matter what, this was still the inner court. Even if they were disregarded, at least their status was different, and here, at least, there was hope. 2 less. Long Fei glanced at it. Fang Wanping nodded his head and said, Yes, I left this morning, I couldn't take it, and I ran away as if I had escaped without even telling me. If he's gone, then so be it. It doesn't matter. I only want those who believe in me, not those who come here to enjoy themselves. Long Fei did not do it on purpose. Phoenix saw that Long Fei had returned and hurriedly walked over. Looking around, he asked, "My darling, where's big sister Luoxi? Why didn't she come with you?" Long Fei said, "She should be out training hard. She will be back when Clan Congress comes, don't worry." "Oh," Phoenix softly replied. Her forehead secretly tightened as she said, "My darling, I keep having the feeling that something has happened to big sister Luoxi." This was her intuition. Inborn intuition. Long Fei laughed, "Silly girl, she will be fine." He had almost picked out the entire Sword Elf Mountain just now, so the king of Sword Elves shouldn't be lying to him. Deceiving him should end up in a miserable state. At least, King of Sword Elves couldn't afford it. Phoenix did not say anything more. After all, this was only an intuition on her part. It did not prove anything. However, when he said this, a knot in Long Fei's heart rose. "All of you, come here for a moment." Long Fei called out. Lu Xun, Bailey Tianhai, Zhao Dehan, Yun Shi, brothers of 5 elements, and the 8 remaining outer sect disciples all walked up. Long Fei said, "Yesterday, I went to find Great Elder and found out that there's still 2 more months before Ancient World S. At that time, all the sects will participate. I've already told Grand Elder that I won't participate." Zhao Dehan immediately became anxious. "Big brother, if you don't want to participate, then we won't be participating either. It's just a competition, there's no meaning to it." Bailey Tianhai said, "Hearing Big Brother speak, you can give an opinion." Long Fei laughed, "I will not participate, but you all must attend." Lu Xun said, "Peak owner, those who participate in the clan congress are all elites of the sects. It can be said that they are the most outstanding people in every sect, geniuses amongst geniuses. In the past, the lowest number of participating disciples in every session of the clan congress were all at the King Swordsman rank, and the highest was at the Sword Emperor realm. There are more monstrous geniuses in those large sects than we have imagined. There might even be powerhouse S with divine space S on them. Ancient antiquity was nothing in ancient world. At most, it was a mid-tier sect. Those super-huge star-like sects controlled the mortal world, and the sect powerhouses were as numerous as the clouds. The disciples they chose were the most talented of geniuses. Any sect could easily crush ancient antiquity. They knew that Lu Xun was the King Swordsman rank, while the others did not even have the qualifications to enter the. Long Fei wanted them to participate. Aren't they being laughed at? Fang Wanpeng also added, "Indeed, the clan congress is a place where top geniuses compare. There are many large sects, and the disciples they nurture are each stronger than the last. The King Swordsman rank is just the right to enter. If they really compete, then even the Sword Emperor will. Powerhouse might not even be able to get him to do well. Those big sects are too strong." There were only 2 months left. Letting them participate? No matter how fast one's cultivation had been in the past 2 months, how fast could it have been? Without even mentioning the others, just the 8 outer sect disciples were already feeling nervous. They felt that Long Fei was just bragging. Moreover, it was not their turn for ancient antiquity to participate in the clan congress. There were many stronger senior brother S than them in the other sects. If Long Fei didn't tell him to go, then he would go. Long Fei said lightly, "I know what you guys are worried about, but don't worry. I will help you guys get reborn in another 2 months. If I say you can go, then you can." Phoenix giggled and said, "Trust in my darling." Yun Shi looked at Long Fei and said, "Clan Congress is not that simple, the other 7 peaks will not agree." Long Fei looked at Yun Shi and laughed sinisterly, "Don't you still owe me one night? Do you want to win it back?" Yun Shi's face reddened slightly. "What do you want to bet this time?" Long Fei said, "Betting on whether or not I can give you the right to participate in the clan congress S. If I lose, you don't have to accompany me tonight." Yun Shi said, "Then what if I lose?" Long Fei laughed wickedly, "That's easy, then treat her as my wife." Yun Shi glared at Long Fei angrily, and said viciously, "You wish?" Long Fei said, "Do you want to bet or not? If you don't, I want you to accompany me tonight. Yunshi clenched his teeth and said, Fine, I'll bet with you. I'll see how you'll help us break through the King Swordsman rank in 2 months. I'll see how you'll help us get the qualifications to become Clan Congress. Long Fei laughed and said, Let's wait and see. The 8 Peaks of Ancient Antiquity. Other than the main hall, the other 6 peaks have been established for thousands of years. Every year, the disciples that participated in the Clan Congress would choose the most outstanding disciples from each peak. Moreover, there were only 10 people in ancient antiquity that could participate. There were also a few substitutes. It was simply impossible for Long Fei to win all the placings. At least, the 6-peak owner would not agree. However, they didn't know what Long Fei had. Long Fei had already made his own plans. All right, everyone, plough the grass and build a house for me first. I will then teach you how to cultivate. Long Fei was not anxious at all. Bailey Tianhai said, Boss, we should at least make the best use of our time to cultivate. Isn't it enough for you to waste another 2 months? Why don't I impart some of my knowledge to them first? Long Fei waved his hand and said, No need, for the next few days, you don't need to do anything at all. Bailey Tianhai was speechless. Lu Zun laughed. Peak owner definitely has his own plans, we will do as he says. Clan Congress. I've never been there. Main Hall Peak, Great Clan Elders Courtyard. One of the disciples recounted in detail what happened in Sword Elf Mountain this morning. Meng Tu frowned. Could it be that you like the Liu Luoshi of Sword Elf Mountain? That disciple said, I don't know about this disciple, but... Master, is Long Fei that powerful? That is the 2 great Master S of the Sword Elf Mountain. Were they easily defeated by him? This is too unbelievable. Right now, the entire ancient antiquity is in an uproar. The corner of Meng Tu's mouth lifted slightly, revealing a hint of a smile. He's really that powerful. When it came to Long Fei's strength, the great clan elder had the most say. When it came to Long Fei's strength, the great clan elder had the most say. He had never seen anyone who could instantly kill God's powerhouse before, who was stronger than Long Fei. Thus, when he found out that Long Fei had crushed the 2 great Master S, he was not one bit shocked. However, what he did not understand was why Long Fei went to look for Liu Luoshi. You like it? Or was it something else? He wanted to know. After all. Furthermore, last time she asked Liu Luoshi if he was willing to enter the divine space, she had also agreed. If Long Fei liked Liu Luoshi, things would not be easy. This had to be cleared up as soon as possible. Then there was the matter of the Clan Congress. He placed all his hopes on Long Fei, but now that Long Fei said that he wouldn't participate, his heart felt very uncomfortable. Long Fei would definitely be able to take first place in the tournament. Ancient antiquity would definitely stir up a huge commotion. But this time, Long Fei not participating gave him a huge headache. There was still 2 months of time. If Long Fei did not participate, he really did not know what to do. The people from the 6 great peaks had quite a few genius disciples, but compared to those disciples from the large sects, they were simply like ants or elephants. They were simply incomparable. Someone, come. Meng Tu shouted. A disciple said, Master. Meng Tu said, Go to North Peak and monitor everything. Watch carefully every single movement there and report to me every day. Yes, sir. The disciple left. Meng Tu held his hands behind his back, looked at the sky, and muttered, Long Fei, oh Long Fei, if you don't participate, who else can? Time passed in a flash. In the blink of an eye, half a month passed. At the summit of North Peak, there was a 2-story house and 2 side houses. Bluestone tiles had been set up all around. The North Peak could be considered to have a bit of an appearance. However, during this period of time, another 3 outer sect disciples could not bear it any longer and fled the North Peak. Long Fei did not stop him. He continued to let them clean up North Peak every day. He was in no hurry. Aside from him and Phoenix, everyone else was panicking. There was still 1.5 months until the Clan Congress, so Long Fei's words were now just like a joke that was bragging. Impossible. Speaking of anxiety, The one who was most anxious was not the people on the North Peak, but the great clan elder, Meng Tu. Listening to the disciples' reports on the progress of the North Peak's construction every day, he couldn't help but want to go to the North Peak to look for Long Fei. What a waste of time. This is a complete waste of time. If this goes on, not to mention that they won't even get the qualifications to join the clan congress, they won't even be able to do so. Meng Tu was furious. But he couldn't say anything to Long Fei. Master, they are doing hard work every day and have not cultivated at all. It seems that Captain Long really thinks much of him. It's just a pity about Brother Lu. Senior Brother Lu Zun has been working hard every day, but I never saw him train. He even wasted his time in fear of dying. Meng Tu exhaled a long breath, sigh. Disciple asked, Master, what do you think of Long Fei so highly? He can even teach Lu Zun? It would be better to let senior brother Lu Zun return. Meng Tu said solemnly, the choice of path is his. When it's time to return, he will naturally return. All right. You should also stop monitoring North Peak. Go back and train. Meng Tu took out a top-grade holy source stone and said, go into closed-door cultivation for a month, see if you can break through your bottleneck. When the disciple saw the top-quality holy source stone, his eyes lit up. He received it with both hands and said, I will definitely not let Master down. Meng Tu waved his hand and said, go. There was nothing he could do now. Long Fei did not even put the clan congress in his eyes. He couldn't ask Long Fei to do anything either. Seems like there's no hope for clan congress again this year. Meng Tu let out a long sigh. Other than Meng Tu, who sent people to monitor Long Fei, the other 6 peaks had sent people to watch North Peak. Seeing Long Fei's actions for the past half-month, the elders of the 6 peaks laughed so hard that they couldn't even straighten their backs. Does he really take himself seriously? Ha ha ha. What kind of leak is he? Does he really think that giving him a mountain peak is actually a peak owner? Can they really be on equal footing with us? Look at how he dealt with North Peak. Does he really think he is a peak owner? Ha ha ha. Many people were laughing. Long Fei laughed because he did not know the limits of heaven and earth. Laughing at how self-righteous he was. If not for the great clan elder thinking highly of Long Fei, these people would have ran over to North Peak and laughed. However, they did not know what Long Fei had been doing for the past half-month. On the day that the house was built, he stayed in front of the seal for an entire day. He removed the seal that Long Quang had taught him and then set up the seal once more. In the current seal, even if the strongest emperor swordsman were here, he would not be able to sense the existence of the seal formation. In this world, other than him, there was no one else that could break the seal. In the veins of the holy source, one could even breathe and break through. If this kind of place was not properly protected, what would happen if outsiders found out? Long Fei was protective. He would never share his resources with others. That was why he had to build the house. Other than setting up the new seal, he still lacked the task of Liu Luoshi. Indeed, Task Palace had her mission record. He went to the Donghuang mountain range. It was also known as the place of bitter cultivation. Although Long Fei was still worried, but there was nothing he could do at the moment. Donghuang mountain range was too big. Even if he went there, he wouldn't be able to find him. They were waiting for the arrival of clan congress that day. At night. In the lobby. The hall was simple and crude, as if it was a bandit's hall. Long Fei sat on the peak owner's seat and looked at the people in the hall. They were all tanned, just like African refugees. Long Fei said, it's been tough on you all for the past half-month. Zhao Dahan said, it's not hard, doing this little bit of work can't be considered hard. Bailey Tianhai said, big brother, it's not hard for us, but for the bet between you and senior sister Yun Shi, you really must have some snacks on it. Yun Shi smiled faintly and said, there's still 1.5 months' time, he won't be able to win. Long Fei smiled and did not say a word. At this moment, Lu Zun walked into the hall and said, there are no peak owners left. The corner of Long Fei's mouth lifted, and said, they only left after half a month, their patience can be considered quite good. Zhao Dahan said, what do you mean by clean? Bailey Tianhai said, the 6 peaks sending people to monitor us? Zhao Dahan immediately said angrily, F*ck, these people are all dogs, big brother, why didn't you say so earlier? If I had said so earlier, I would have taught them a lesson. Long Fei laughed, it's all right. Now that they are gone, it is time for us to move. This half a month has been tough for everyone. Similarly, I have also tempered everyone's will. All of you will be able to persevere and endure without any complaints. After half a month of settling down, his heart had calmed down. After half a month of settling down, his heart had calmed down. If he could not leave now, then he would not leave, and Long Fei had no need to continue with the test. In the Great Hall, they heard Long Fei's words. Zhao Dahan could not help but ask, Big brother, do you have a plan? Bailey Tianhai thought of the last time he entered the seal, and immediately thought of something, and said, Big brother, you didn't beat that guy down, right? Then I'll. He did not continue. Long Fei kept him in suspense, you will know soon enough. Yun Shi, you have to be prepared. Yun Shi was surprised for a moment, and said, What do I need to prepare? Long Fei said, You must be prepared to be my wife. Yun Shi's eyes widened, and he glared fiercely at Long Fei. It's not certain who will win. Long Fei walked down and said, Everyone, follow me. Uncle Fang. Without waiting for Long Fei to say anything, Fang Wamping said, It's useless for me to go down to cultivate, I am satisfied with my current cultivation, you guys go in, I will guard here, no one can enter. He was now a third-grade deity. In the entire ancient antiquity, no one was his match either. It was just that. He was unable to break through to the third grade of the Empyrean god level. However, to a mortal, this was already something extremely satisfying. Long Fei nodded, and said, Okay. All right, everyone, come with me. Little girl, you come with me. Phoenix giggled and said, En. She also wanted to see what the Holy Source Pulsar was and know what the defense tribe was. It was extremely difficult to find such things even in the divine space. Every one of them were nurtured by the heaven and earth, it was as if they were the lifeline of ancient world. She wanted to see it too. Long Fei brought everyone to the seal, and with a twitch of his eyebrows, his left hand formed a seal, and streams of energy poured in. Half a minute later. Crash. It was like a thick stone door opening. The seal opened, revealing a deep hole. Long Fei said, Lu Zun, lead the 5 junior brothers over there and control your chi, they will directly fly down. Little girl, come. Phoenix immediately jumped up and threw herself into Long Fei's embrace. Her hands and feet were wrapped around Long Fei as she said, My darling, I'm hugging you tightly. Long Fei was also speechless. However, if the Phoenix likes it this way, then so be it. Everyone jumped down one by one. A few minutes later, the group landed on the ground. The surrounding temperature was extremely hot, and after a few minutes, their clothes were all soaked. Especially Yun Shi. Her clothes were drenched and stuck to her body, making her figure extremely obvious, causing people to be unable to help themselves from imagining things. But only Long Fei would stare at her without moving, and no one else would dare. Yun Shi stared at Long Fei and said fiercely, If you continue, I'll dig out your eyes. Long Fei laughed, In the future, I will let you take off all your clothes for me to see. All right. Long Fei withdrew his undisguised gaze, walked to the edge of the cliff, looked at the crystal-clear fluorescent light below the cliff, and said, Below is the Holy Source's vein mine. Phoenix walked forward with an astonished expression and said, It's still beautiful, just like the stars in the sky. Bailey Tianhai was a little puzzled, and asked, Big brother, where is that land beast? Long Fei looked around and shook his head, I don't know either, I probably have to go. That was what he wanted to know as well. He had obviously been tested by the Guardians, so why did the Holy Source demon spider disappear when he killed it? He couldn't figure it out. Long Fei was too lazy to think about it. Anyway, the system quest was still there. As long as he completed the tasks given by the system, he would also be able to become a guardian and receive the same reward. He did not need the land beast or the acknowledgement of the heavenly beast tribes. Everyone walked to the edge of the cliff. Looking at the crystal-clear light below, they were all dumbfounded. They were in too much of a hurry last time, and with the land beast's attack, they simply didn't have time to enjoy the beautiful scenery. Long Fei said, "Don't be so shocked yet, there's something you guys are more shocked about down below." "All right. Just like before, let's go down." Long Fei took the lead and jumped down while carrying the phoenix. Hualala! Hualala! The hot wind roared, causing Long Fei's hair to stand on end. "He's all right." After all, they were now immortal swordsmen rank S, brothers of 5 elements S, and even the 5 outer sect disciples could not bear it any longer. However, this is good too. One must know that this was a place where even breathing could break through. Boom! Long Fei landed on the ground. The phoenix stood on top of the crystal-clear vein mine of the holy source, and closed her eyes slightly. Such a powerful strength, this strength. So pure. Half a moment. The phoenix opened its eyes and said, "My darling, do not let anyone find out about this vein mine of the holy source. Otherwise, all the powerhouse in the divine space will come and fight for it. Even the divine space powerhouse would fight over it." Phoenix's expression was very serious. Her saying this was enough to show the power of this vein mine. Long Fei laughed. "Don't worry, I'm already prepared. I've broken through." "Ha ha ha. I've broken through as well. Why are you so fast?" I've continuously broken through to the 3rd level. Oh my God, I didn't do anything. I can feel the holy source's energy that is far, far away pouring into my body. My entire body is filled with the aura of the holy source, and I'm continuously tempering it, helping me to break through my shackles. Heavens, this. After they landed on the ground one by one, their expressions were filled with extreme shock. It could be said that one breakthrough after another. Just like Long Fei, his breathing had broken through. This was a vein mine of the holy source. It had been nurtured by an incomparably dense heaven and earth, the purest power of the holy source. If this energy was absorbed into the body, how could it not break through? Bailey Tianhai frowned, but relaxed his mind. He looked at Long Fei in a daze and said, I broke through too. It was just a few breaths. I broke through." Lu Xun had a stunned expression, and said, this place, is there any spirit-gathering formation? I've never absorbed such pure holy source qi in my entire cultivation before. It's too pure, too. Boom. A rumbling sound could be heard from within Lu Xun's body as the aura of his strength instantly changed. It was a bit stronger than before, and he said with incomparable excitement, I broke through as well. 10 years. It's been a full 10 years. I've finally broken through. While they were talking, Lu Xun's tears almost flowed out as he looked at Long Fei with tears in his eyes. That excited and grateful expression on his face made him want to kneel down towards Long Fei. In 10 years, he couldn't even take a single step forward. Now, he only needed a few breaths to break through. The difference between heaven and earth. Long Fei smiled faintly, and said, grasp the time you have here, there's only 1 night's worth of time every day. We must return to the surface before dawn. I have to teach you guys something else. Brothers, go berserk and level up. To be able to even break through breathing, this sort of speed could only be described as berserk. To be able to even break through breathing, this sort of speed could only be described as berserk. Everyone crazily leveled up. Long Fei didn't waste any time as he said to the phoenix, girl, if you don't want to cultivate, then look around. Don't go too far away. Phoenix nodded and replied, En. Long Fei sat cross-legged, the idea moved and entered the refined space. His body was breathing. The holy source that he was breathing was constantly tempering his body, providing him with a strong energy in the refined space. Thus, cultivating in the refined space would allow one's speed to increase. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for leveling up. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for leveling up. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for leveling up. From time to time, a system announcement rang out. There was no need to even mention the speed of the refined space, it was all thanks to the power of the holy source, which was too pure and dense. It was 1,000 times better than any top-grade holy source stone. As Long Fei cultivated in the refined space, the amount of holy source aura he absorbed in his body also increased. Long Guangdao, Master, the holy source qi in the holy source vein's mine is too pure. You can use the power of the holy source to fuse it into your sword technique. Heh! It can even fuse the power of holy source into a cultivation technique? Long Fei was slightly shocked. The power of holy source was the blue. According to the game description, the blue power was the energy used to activate the skill, so it could not be fused into the skill. In the past, Long Fei had never thought of it this way. Long Guangdao, before, I couldn't do it with that sparse amount of spirit energy, but the holy source here is too strong, and can completely fuse with martial skills. This will make a stronger breakthrough in the power of your martial skills. In other words, it will allow your cultivation technique to level up. Cultivation technique upgrade? Long Fei smirked and said, interesting. When a cultivation technique was cultivated to the limit, there would always be a limit to its strength. This limit could not be broken. However, if he could upgrade his cultivation technique, it would mean breaking the shackles and increasing his strength. Long Fei asked, what should I do? Long Guangdao, I'm not sure exactly how to do it, but you once said that if you want to fuse pure holy source energy into a cultivation technique, then you must practice it no matter what. Once. Long Fei asked with great interest, did Long Batian do it before? Long Guangdao, I did it. He did it after returning from the defense tribe. It's just that he only managed to do one move. It's this move that allows him to defend against external enemies. F***CK. It's that strong. One move. Long Fei was secretly speechless. What kind of existence was Long Batian? He was once the god of boundary, the overlord, and the first powerhouse of the ancient world. To be able to do all of this showed how powerful he was. No matter if it was his intelligence, talent, or his unswerving determination, he was probably stronger than anyone. At least, Long Fei felt that without the system, he could not even compare to Long Batian. Even such a monstrous genius could only fuse one move. That would be very difficult. Is it just training relentlessly? Long Fei slightly said, okay, Long Batian can, I am sure that I can too. In the refined space. While Long Fei was cultivating his sword intent, he was also cultivating his sword moves, constantly releasing the holy source's power that he had absorbed into his body. Every sword move, every fist move unleashed with all his might. It was just that. To fuse the power of holy source into a cultivation technique was simply too difficult, too difficult. Moreover, this kind of fusion had no direction, no guidance, and was entirely based on Long Fei searching by himself. He kept on trying, and who knew how many times he would have to try. Hard. However, the word give up did not exist in Long Fei's dictionary. Crazy training. Say the Phoenix. She walked along the holy source vein mine and headed deeper. The Phoenix King blood flowed in her body, and she had the body of an eighth circulation. Normal holy source qi was completely useless against her cultivation. Moreover, she was never in a hurry to break through her own cultivation. As she walked on the holy source vein mine, sensing the pure holy source aura that was continuously being released from the holy source vein's mine, a question rose in her heart. The holy source vein mine was birthed from heaven and earth. However, how was it born? Furthermore, how could such an ethereal thing as heaven and earth be nurtured? Heavens? What is the heavens? That is the supreme realm. That is the heavens. That is their limitless existence. Earth. It's just soil. She had never seen the holy source vein mine before and could not feel what was a pure holy source, but now she could feel it. Looking at the crystal clear holy source vein mine, she had a feeling that there was something else buried under it. The crystal clear vein was like a layer of ice. It freezes things below. Of course. This was just a speculation of the Phoenix. She walked forward, wanting to reach the end of the vein mine. However, the length of this holy source vein mine could extend to millions of kilometers. To reach the end of it was simply too difficult. Moreover, many areas were deep within the rocks, making it impossible for them to pass through. Phoenix walked for several hours. Although she did not encounter any place that she could not pass, she could not see the end of it. Just when she wanted to give up, suddenly, the surrounding darkness changed. The space between Phoenix's eyebrows tightened as she stared ahead. A hollow voice rang out. Phoenix King blood. 8 revolutions body. Heavenly talent. A pretty good physique. Phoenix's eyes were calm as she looked into the darkness. She asked indifferently, "Who are you?" The hollow voice laughed. "Ha ha ha. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? I seem to have forgotten myself." Phoenix asked, "Have you even forgotten yourself?" A hollow voice replied, "It's been too long. No, I should have forgotten that I have the time. However, you let me know again that time is a real definition. Little kid, it's your profound strength and talent that caused me to wake up. Not bad, not bad. I never thought that someone as gifted as you would appear in ancient world after so many years." Phoenix once again asked, "Senior, just who are you?" A hollow voice sounded out, "Me? If you really want to say a name, then call me Ancient Ancestor." Ancient Ancestor? She had never heard of this name and could not help but ask, "Are you Defense Tribe?" "Defense Tribe? Ha ha ha. It's just a small race under my tutelage." Ancient Ancestor smiled faintly. Phoenix's eyes narrowed. From what she knew, the Defense Tribe was the most ancient clan of the ancient world, much older than the Dragon Clan, the Phoenix Clan, and the other ancient clans. However, right now, it was actually just a small clan under the Ancient Ancestor. In other words, it was a small power. Then who was this Ancient Ancestor person? How strong was he? Terrifying. Phoenix could also be considered to have read a large group of books. Phoenix could also be considered to have read a large group of books. The Phoenix liked to read about it since she was young, but she had never heard of someone like the Ancient Ancestor. Her divine sense slightly moved. Buzz. A strange rainbow light shot out, directly enveloping the darkness. At this moment, a strange domain appeared around the Phoenix. With her at the center, there was a slowly moving vortex. The vortex was surrounded by all sorts of colorful lights. This was the domain of the Phoenix. She had incorporated everything within a radius of thousands of meters into her domain. In other words, in this domain, she was the ruler. Anyone, any demon beast, anything that was alive, no matter if you were a human or a ghost, was in her control. She released the domain of the old man who only wanted to know where he was. However, her domain was empty. Nothing had any breath. The space between Phoenix's eyebrows tightened. Ancient Ancestor smiled faintly and said, "To be able to grasp the divine-level domain at such a young age, not bad, not bad. But little kid, you can't even sense my existence with your little strength." The voice that spoke seemed to be coming from beside Phoenix. The Phoenix's aura retracted. Putting away the domain, it was obvious that she could not sense the existence of the Ancient Ancestor. Maybe the Ancient Ancestor was not within her domain, or maybe his strength was too weak to sense his existence. Phoenix asked, "Can you show yourself? Appear." "Ha ha ha." Ancient Ancestor laughed and said, "I've always been showing myself." Phoenix asked, "Then why can't I see you?" Ancient Ancestor asked, "Who said you can't see me? I am right in front of you, right beside you, right under your feet, on your left, right, above your head, in the air." These were all objects. Phoenix's mind was intelligent as she asked, "Are you from the ancient realm? Only the planes would take care of this." "Ha ha ha." Ancient Ancestor laughed out loudly again, and said, "This child is really smart. I am Ancient Ancestor, and can also be called Ancient World." Phoenix asked, "Did you create this ancient plane?" The Ancient Ancestor said, "You can't put it like that. To be exact, it should be a plane created by the Divine Hall. I was just born along with the ancient world." "Temple? You were born together with the ancient world?" The Phoenix's little head isn't enough to be able to create such a large plane, and furthermore, it is a motherworld plane. The ancient world that can reproduce various small planes was actually created by an organization. Then what kind of existence was this? These safety measures were beyond Phoenix's knowledge. The ancient ancestor continued, to be exact, it should be my soul that was born along with the ancient world. Forget it. It's useless to say that. The shrine has been destroyed. This is probably my final divine soul. I can't hold on much longer. When the plane is broken, my divine soul will perish as well. At that time, I'm afraid no one in the entire universe knows about the limitless temple anymore. Hee hee. Ancient ancestor laughed bitterly. Little child, it was you who woke me up in these countless years. In these billions of years, I have never said as much as I do today. It's your chance. Say it. What do you want? Sigh. So what if I want something? In the end, it will still be hard to escape death. Forget it, it's better if you don't need anything. You just have to live the rest of the day happily. Ancient ancestor's voice was filled with helplessness. It was like a definite number. Can't change. No matter what, it was still the same. There was no way to change it. This was fate. Phoenix did not care about what ancient ancestor did not give her. She was more concerned about why her ancient world was being destroyed, and she asked, Ancestor, is ancient world really running out of time? Why? You are the ancient ancestor, and also the master's master. If you attack, who can destroy the ancient world, ancient ancestor? Not even defense tribes would be overpowered. It was also someone from the limitless temple. Phoenix had never even heard of these things before. The ancient ancestor smiled faintly and said, It's useless. This is a calamity, a foregone conclusion. It cannot be changed. Doom. The phoenix muttered, Ancestor, there is nothing that cannot be changed. My darling had once said that one will triumph over the heavens. Determination of victory? Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. The ancient ancestor laughed out loudly. What a great saying is that one must win against the heavens. If even the gods cannot defeat the heavens, how can a mere mortal win against the heavens? What can we win against the heavens? Kid, the ancient world is only a medium plane in the universe. It's too weak, just like the weak. In front of those divine level planes, one move is enough to destroy it. Last time. This time. Without waiting for ancient ancestor to finish speaking, Phoenix immediately said, This time, it won't be destroyed either. With my darling here, no one can think of destroying ancient world. Her face was serious. And his eyes were filled with unparalleled conviction. She only believed in Long Fei's ability. He believed that Long Fei could accomplish everything. Ancient ancestor smiled, and did not ask Phoenix who the my darling was. He was able to sense everything that Phoenix was talking about. After doing calculations for so many years, he still could not come up with a single thread of hope for the ancient world. No. The calamity had arrived. It was hard to escape. Everything in the limitless temple will be destroyed. The last time the Zhentian stones appeared, ancient world had been struggling on the edge of death for a few years. No one can save this place. At least. Ancient ancestor could not see such a person. Kid, this ancient world doesn't have much time. Seeing that you're intelligent and have a long lifeline, I'll give you a chance to live, ancient ancestor said indifferently. Ancient world was destroyed. The 100,000 planes below ancient world would all be destroyed. All life will perish. Not a single human was spared. However, when ancient ancestor saw the serious look on Phoenix's face, he couldn't help but feel a little unwilling. Maybe she could live. It could also be considered an opportunity for her to meet him. Phoenix asked, What kind of chance of survival? The ancient ancestor moved slightly, and a ray of light directly pierced into the center of the phoenix's brows. There was a burning sensation on her forehead. After a few seconds, a red, diamond-shaped crystal appeared on her forehead. However, after a few seconds, the crystal slowly disappeared. Phoenix was unable to sense its existence. Phoenix asked, What is it? Ancient ancestor smiled faintly, and said, You will know about your slim chance of survival when the time comes. Perhaps you can continue to live. This will depend on your fate. All right, go. The sound disappeared. The surrounding darkness returned to normal, leaving nothing behind. Phoenix moved her body numbly, as if she had been dreaming. Little girl, little girl, little girl, little girl. Long Fei quickly landed beside Phoenix. Phoenix's eyes were dull as she touched her forehead. There were no scars and she could not sense anything. She recovered from her shock, looked at Long Fei and said, "My darling." Long Fei looked at her worriedly, and at the same time, looked around and asked, "What happened to you just now? I kept calling out to you, and you never responded." Phoenix giggled and said, "I was thinking about something just now, so I didn't hear anything." She did not tell Long Fei about the ancient ancestor. He also did not mention that the ancient world was about to be destroyed. She did not really believe in ancient ancestor. There were no signs of the ancient world being destroyed. Even if a large number of outer space powerhouses emerged from the divine space, these outer space powerhouses did not destroy them. However, this matter made Phoenix's heart tighten. Taking the matter just now for example, she clearly didn't hear Long Fei calling her, which showed that she had entered a strange space just now. That old man. It must not be simple. The next time I return to Phoenix Valley, I will definitely ask Aunt about it. She will definitely know about it. Phoenix thought in her heart. Long Fei looked at Phoenix with a strange expression. Clearly, something had happened just now. However, since the Phoenix did not say it, Long Fei would not ask either. Long Fei said, "The sun is about to rise. We are going up." Phoenix obediently nodded her head and said, "En, my darling, hug." Phoenix stretched out her hands, revealing an innocent and adorable expression. Long Fei hugged her and gently leaped into the air. Phoenix asked, "My darling, you are already at the 6th stage of the Sword Immortal?" Long Fei said, "I can even break through breathing here. My speed is considered slow, they are even more abnormal." Phoenix said, "My darling is the strongest." Returning to the ground, the sky had just begun to brighten. In the lobby, a smile blossomed on everyone's faces. Especially those 5 outer court disciples, they seemed as if they'd been struck by 5 million, and they were all grinning from ear to ear. They were extremely glad that they had persevered. They all lost hope. However, now, it was as if they were laughing in front of the outer sect disciples who had just left North Peak. "Let's all report on our breakthroughs," Long Fei said indifferently. Wu Hua immediately replied, "I'm going first, I've broken through to the 13th realm, I'm now a sword immortal level 3, ha ha ha." 13. Damn. Long Fei knew that these people had a lot of breakthroughs, but he never thought that they would reach level 13 in one night. "What is this? This was going crazy," Wu Tu said. "The 5 of us are all the same, we are all level 13, and we have never felt this good, never felt that cultivation could actually be so simple." Long Fei looked at Bailey Tianhai and asked, "What about the 2 of you?" Zhao Dahan scratched his head and said, "Big brother, I have broken through the 15th floor, my cultivation is now even higher than yours. I'm level 7 sword immortal now." Long Fei. He was speechless. "Awesome." Long Fei praised. Bailey Tianhai said, "I have forgotten how many realms I have broken through, but my cultivation is now at the 1st level of the King Swordsman. Holy *T. Aren't you being too abnormal?" Bailey Tianhai, "I always thought that your brain was abnormal, I never thought that your cultivation speed was even more abnormal. Brother Tianhai is awesome. Brother Tianhai is mighty. Damn, Brother Tianhai, how did you do that?" They were all filled with envy. They were also very excited. Long Fei looked at Lu Zun and asked, "What about you?" Lu Zun hugged both of his hands, and said very seriously, "Reporting to peak owner, I have broken through to the 3rd level." Long Fei said, "Don't be so formal, you were able to abandon everything in the main hall peak and come to my side. Also, you took care of the land beast and protected my brother that day, so you are my brother." The 3rd level, breaking through the 3rd level of the King Swordsman rank in one night. This speed. Lu Zun said, "You're comparable to me who has cultivated for 100 years. With that, the entire audience was slightly shocked. A night worth 100 years. This speed. Long Fei asked, "Do you have the confidence to break through the Emperor Swordsman rank within a month?" The later the breakthrough, the harder it would be. In addition to that, there was a limit to his talent. Various shackles. It was impossible to be as fast as last night. In this world, the majority of warriors did not have a very high realm, and there were even less who could step into the Emperor Swordsman rank. Break through the Sword Emperor level in 1 month. Even with the help of the powerful resources of the Holy Source Veins mine, he still did not dare to be certain of this. Lu Xun clenched both his fists tightly, and said, yes. Long Fei had given him a place to soar in the sky. If he was unable to fly, how would he have the face to continue to stay in this place? Long Fei said in a low voice, all right, wait for your Emperor Swordsman rank. When the time comes, Clan Congress will become the vanguard, and defeat them all. Lu Xun clenched his fists tightly. I will definitely do it. The Great Elder had once asserted that it would be difficult for his talent to break through to the Sword Emperor level. He was now at the 4th level of King Swordsman. The Sword Emperor still had 6 realms. It did not look like much, 1 night for 3 levels, and 2 nights to break through, but to break through the 9th level of the King Swordsman was too difficult. It was simply too difficult. Moreover, he still had to comprehend the Sword of the Emperor. Otherwise, even if he broke through, it would be useless. Long Fei looked at them and said, don't look at Lu Xun, the both of you must also break through the Emperor Swordsman rank, so that the geniuses of the large sects can see what a true genius is. Let them know what a crushing defeat is. Either you don't do it, or you do it to the best of your abilities. Long Fei did not participate. However, he would let a strong team of strongest Emperor Swordsmen participate. It shocked everyone. Yun Shi looked at Long Fei. Long Fei glanced at her, and said, what, do you have something to say? Yun Shi said, about the bet with you yesterday. Long Fei said, don't think about going back on your word, it's impossible. Yun Shi glared at Long Fei, stomping his feet in anger. Everyone laughed. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Everyone laughed. Outside the hall, Fang Wampeng also smiled faintly. Looking at Long Fei, who was seated on the high seat, he felt very good. North Peak, everyone already remembers this place. Dark God Tribe. Lord, this is the information regarding that kid. He is currently the founder of the 8th peak of ancient antiquity, the North Peak. However, it didn't do anything. There's one thing worth mentioning, he crushed 2 Master S of the Sword Elf Mountain in 1 move. A purplish black-robed middle-aged man frowned, and said solemnly, no wonder you were able to kill 2 of my Dark God Tribe's powerhouse S in a row. It is worth mentioning. The middle-aged man's long robe was embroidered with the word Xian. Only the disciples of Xian's blood vein had the right to the word rust. Another old man continued, Master, since he is so strong, I believe that the Clan Congress will definitely send him out to battle. So, the middle-aged man frowned, and said indifferently, then let's get rid of him in Clan Congress. In the competition at Clan Congress, martial power was at the forefront. In the competition at Clan Congress, martial power was at the forefront. Battle power was always the first priority. However, if ancient antiquity wanted to take first place in Clan Congress, just the strength of the martial force was not enough, because although martial arts competition was the most important, it could only be one of them. If he wanted to take first place, then he had to make up for the rest. Alchemy, engraving array, beast master, artifact forging. They were waiting for a series of matches. North Peak did not have such a mentor. Fang Wampeng didn't know how to use these, he could only know some basic things, and was not very proficient in them. They had all placed their focus on cultivation in the past. He could only rely on Long Fei. Long Fei wouldn't do that in the ancient world, but he had the refined space. The refined space had 8 stone doors, other than the 8th one, Long Fei knew the rest. Behind each door was a training system. There were alchemy S, artifact forging, arrays, beast taming, and so on. Long Fei also pushed the spatial doors open. The experiences that he gained from cultivating in the refined space were taught to them during the day. Inscription of formations. Not only do we need to pay attention to the strength of the formation core, the strength of the formation glyph is even more important. Basically, for all formations, the method of breaking one's formation is to break the formation aperture. This sort of formation can only be a low-level formation. True high-grade formations do not have formation apertures. In other words, they cannot be found. To carve such a formation, the array symbols are especially important. I will start cultivating formation runes today, Long Fei said seriously. Everyone in the hall also listened attentively. At night, he would enter the holy source vein mine to cultivate, and during the day, he would train with Long Fei to help with these jobs. Everyone was very serious. Because they all knew in their hearts that this was an opportunity for them. If they missed this opportunity, they would regret it for the rest of their lives. Right now, they only had admiration for Long Fei and the others, feeling that he was an omnipotent existence. Especially Yun Shi. She had always been thinking, how could there be such an abnormal person in the Dragon Clan? These years, no one had heard of any geniuses in the Dragon Clan. The feeling Long Fei gave her right now was that of a demon. Why would such a perverted person choose to undergo rebirth and recuperation? This was a problem that she did not understand. Beast taming. The most important thing is to establish a good idea bridge with the demon beast. You must make the demon beast you surrender feel warmth. Let him believe you. Of course, you can also use violence. If you don't accept it, you can hit him until you submit. The condition is that you are stronger than the demon beast. A strong demon beast's sea of consciousness is abnormally vast. In this kind of situation, the only way to find the demon beast's center of consciousness is to rely on your own idea's strength. There is one most direct method, which is to control beasts and attack at the same time. When they are under attack, their mental energy will become abnormally tense, making it much easier for them to advance at that time. Refining. If I want to refine a super weapon, the power of the heavens and the earth cannot be lacking. Refining not only requires one's own strength, the strength of the materials, but also the absorption of the power of heaven and earth from the weapon. Only by doing this will the forged weapon be of high quality. Long Fei taught refined space everything he knew, without holding anything back. Time flowed on. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed. There was still half a month until Clan Congress. At this moment, the various great peaks of ancient antiquity were already ready to make a move. Every single day, there would be an elder or peak owner who would bring people to the main hall to find Meng Tu Great Clan Elder. He is the disciple with the most potential in Powder Peak. He's already able to concoct immortal pills. Even if we can't compare up to those disciples of the big sects in the Clan Congress, we would absolutely not lose face for the sect. If we are lucky, we might even be able to refine a holy plea, and at that time, the great clan elder of the Powder Peak stood in Meng Tu's courtyard along with his personal disciple. He looked excited. In the ancient antiquity, immortal rank alchemy masters were considered top-tier alchemy masters. However, Meng Tu laughed bitterly. If we're lucky. Ha 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 ha. The great clan elder from Powder Peak had an awkward expression. That disciple was very confident as he said, "Great elder, there is still half a month left. I will definitely do my best to break through." Meng Tu nodded, and said, "Being confident is good. I still have half a month, I hope you can break through. Someone, come. Give him 3 top-quality holy source stones." That disciple's eyes flashed with a glimmer as he immediately said, "Many thanks, great elder. I will definitely not disappoint you." The great clan elder of the Powder Peak revealed a smile and said, "Thank you, senior brother," then his qualifications to go to the clan congress. Logically speaking, this was the recommended disciple by Powder Peak and should be the default disciple for Powder Peak Lord. Meng Tu should not object either. However, Meng Tu thought of what Long Fei had said before, and said, "It's tentative." The Powder Peak elder was startled. "Eh? Great elder, what do you mean by tentatively preparing it?" Meng Tu looked at the Powder Peak elder and said, "Do you want me to explain in detail the meaning of the word tentative?" The Powder Peak elder's body shrunk, and he immediately said, "No need, no need." One could see the anger in Meng Tu's words. If he continued to ask, he might even lose all 3 top-grade holy source stones. Elder Powder Peak took his disciple and left the main hall. On the way, the Powder Peak elder divided the holy source stones into 3 portions. "You have 1 portion, half a month's worth of one would be enough for you to cultivate. The rest are for peak owner and me. Do you have any objections? The disciple kept saying, no. This was the rule. If this disciple obtains the reward, master will definitely have a share. Meng Tu's courtyard. After the powder peak elder left, the old servant slowly walked out and said, Master, you still haven't given up yet? Meng Tu let out a long breath, and said, Immortal rank alchemy master? Hee. And he was lucky. How can I give up on this kind of situation? Meng Tu naturally knew what this old servant was talking about. Meng Tu looked in the direction of the North Peak, and asked indifferently, What's the situation there? The old servant said, I don't know, but a few days ago, there were some disciples who saw it as usual. They were building the North Peak, this child Long Fei. Sigh. Meng Tu said, I really do not understand, why can he represent the ancient antiquity in battle? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If I perform well this time, I might not even need to participate in the divine space assessment before being chosen by the divine powerhouse. How great would that be? Why doesn't he understand? The old servant said, Master, it's possible that his ambition is not here. Meng Tu's brows slightly tightened, and said, That's not the case. Could it be that he only wants to cower in such an ancient antiquity? He is obviously a dragon, why would he shrink into an insect? He's going to soar the 9 heavens. We can't waste it here. Meng Tu was very confused. He didn't know what to say to Long Fei, but he could only sigh. In this 1.5 month, Long Fei's performance had greatly disappointed him. Long Fei only wanted to be the peak master of this place, only thinking of getting the North Peak up. Indeed. In half a month's time, the North Peak had become very lively because of him, and it already had the pattern of the 8th peak of ancient antiquity. However, he was wasting his time. Meng Tu asked Long Fei to go to the North Peak to avoid the world and to have more time to cultivate. But Long Fei only wanted to be a peak owner. Meng Tu really couldn't understand. During this period of time, the other 6 peaks had recommended disciples to him to go to the clan congress, but looking at the strength of these disciples, Meng Tu didn't say it on the surface, but he was feeling extremely bitter in his heart. Weak. Too weak. He was so weak that he couldn't even be described. With such strength, participating in the clan congress would only result in one thing, and that was, he would be mocked by others just like in the past. Let alone the finals, they couldn't even make it to the outer ring. He had once again become the laughingstock of other sects. As the acting sect master, Meng Tu wanted to make some achievements, so he wanted to borrow the clan congress's power to raise his reputation. He was very confident at first. As long as Long Fei took the stage, nothing would be a problem. However, Long Fei had clearly rejected him, and he did not dare say anything else. He was worried that Long Fei would leave the ancient antiquity directly, because if he did that, his loss would be even greater. If Long Fei did not participate in the clan congress, at least he would not leave. If he met with a strong enemy, the sect master would not be able to defeat him, and Long Fei could even kill him within minutes. After all, Long Fei had the ability to kill divine powerhouse. Meng Tu was very clear about this point. Huff. Sigh. Meng Tu sighed, and said, Perhaps I shouldn't have allowed him to go to the North Peak in the first place. The old servant said, Master, don't be discouraged. Clan Congress still has half a month, who knows, maybe he will head in a good direction. Hee. Meng Tu laughed, and stopped thinking about it. He turned the topic and asked, What is the new movement that you made after coming back to the Dark God tribe? The old servant's eyes narrowed. No. Meng Tu asked, Dark God tribe did not make a move. The old servant said, Speaking of which, it's quite strange. In this 1.5 months' time, the Dark God tribe did not send out any assassins. Meng Tu also frowned and said, Be careful, Dark God tribe isn't someone that you can afford to offend. The old servant nodded, I know, it is the power of the Xians, the current is the strongest, the Dark God tribe is just a small organization in the mortal world, its existence is similar to the punishment division. Master, what if Dark God tribe wants Long Fei to die? Then what should we do? How strong was the Xians? Meng too did not know, he only knew that no one in the Xians dared to offend him, whether it was in the mortal world or the divine space. Provoking the Dark God tribe was really a headache for Meng too. If Dark God tribe were to really display his divine might and kill Long Fei, what choice would he make then? Meng too was also unsure in his heart. After all, if the choice was not good, ancient antiquity would most likely be doomed. This question caused Meng too to fall into deep thought. After a long time, Meng too said indifferently, "No matter what, he is my ancient antiquities disciple. Even if we face the strongest opponent, we cannot just ignore him." His answer had already been made, and the old servant was startled. The old servant said, "Old master, do you think it's because didn't join clan congress this time? Does he want to avoid the Dark God tribe? You must know that the Dark God tribe will also participate. Clan congress was the biggest gathering in the mortal world, so no power would miss it, and neither would Dark God tribe." Hearing the old servant's words, Meng too's eyes flashed with a trace of light, and said, "It's very possible. If it's like that, then this brat. You're a bit smart. Why didn't I think of that? Ha ha ha. So that's how it is." The more he thought about it, the happier Meng too became. For Long Fei to be able to avoid the Dark God tribe was an extremely good thing. Of course, Long Fei did not know the background of the Dark God tribe. If he knew that the Dark God tribe was a power of the Xians, he wouldn't even need to wait for Long Fei to kill him. Based on Long Fei's temper, he should be like this. Still no news. Fang Wanpeng lightly shook his head and said, "No, the result of the search was that the mission did not return. I will also send people to the Donghuang mountain range. But that place is too big, and also too dangerous. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack." Fang Wanpeng looked at Long Fei as he talked slowly. Long Fei tightened his hands. During this period of time, he did not stop his search for Liu Luoshi. She always felt that something had happened to Liu Luoshi. However, he had no evidence, no way. He was extremely vexed. There was no one in the ancient antiquity, it was too big to find. All of these things. This made Long Fei very worried in his heart. Phoenix walked over and gently said, "Big sister Luo, she will be fine." Long Fei smiled and said, "Amen." The day of the sex competition was half a month away, and if Liu Luoshi still didn't return by then, Long Fei would definitely exterminate the king of sword elves. He had always been impatient. Huff. Long Fei took a deep breath and asked, "Is everyone ready?" Phoenix nodded and said, "Ian, I've been waiting for you." Night fell. Long Fei opened the seal, and the group once again entered the heart of the holy source. Their cultivation had already reached the peak of the king swordsman. He was about to break through. In another place. In the secret room in the forbidden grounds of Sword Elf Mountain. Liu Luoshi sat cross-legged and a stream of holy source slowly flowed into the abdomen of her body. She was not cultivating, but rather, she was absorbing a bit of the holy source's energy and channeling it into her fetus. In this secret room, the baby needed the holy source more than she did. Besides nutrition, the fetus now needs to grow as little as possible. She had to control it. Because, once others saw that her stomach was too big, the consequences would be even more severe. She could not allow herself and her child to become tools for others to threaten Long Fei. It didn't matter to her, it didn't matter even if she died. But the child must not be in trouble. Right now, Liu Luoshi's thoughts were very simple. No matter what happens, she must protect Long Fei's flesh and blood. An hour later, Liu Luoshi stood up and slowly walked around the secret room, one hand stroking his stomach. In his heart, he thought, "Baby, you have to grow bigger at a slower pace, you have to be at a slower pace. You can relax when you meet your father. Your father is called Long Fei. He is the most handsome and powerful man in the world. He would definitely be proud to have such a father. I really miss him now." Liu Luoshi stopped and looked at the dark sky, muttering, "Long Fei, I missed you so much." Ah, ah, ah. Lu Xun roared as all the veins in his body bulged, causing even more beads of sweat to roll down his forehead. At this moment, he was trying to break through to the Sword Emperor realm. He was condensing the Emperor Sword. This was the most important moment to break through the Emperor Swordsman rank. Failure, complete loss of cultivation. Success, he had stepped into the realm of Sword Emperor. Hualala. Hualala. The surrounding sword concept was like a howling gale, with Lu Xun at the center. All within a radius of dozens of meters was sword chi field. The lines of sword chi quickly spun, as though there were tens of thousands of swords moving. The entire scene was extremely shocking. Long Fei and the others were standing far away. Long Fei's forehead was locked tight. Bailey Tianhai said slightly, "Big brother, will he succeed?" Zhao Dahan replied, "Definitely, Brother Lu is working harder than anyone else in this period of time, he will definitely succeed." Long Fei shook his head, "It's hard to say." Zhao Dahan's gaze tensed up. Bailey Tianhai said, "If I fail, then my cultivation will be crippled. Even if I succeed, and the resulting fusion is the trash sword intent, then..." The Emperor Swordsman rank in ancient world was extremely rare. The most important reason was that it was too easy to fail at condensing an Emperor sword. Many geniuses had fallen because of this. The Emperor's realm wasn't that simple. At this moment, Lu Xun let out another furious roar. Ah! Rumble. The sword cheese formation let out a loud rumble, and the streams of sword cheese seemed to vibrate as the sword hums were especially ear-piercing. Yunshi said, "There's pain in his voice, I'm worried. He may not be able to bear it." Long Fei frowned, looking at Lu Xun who was in the center of the field. The perspiration on his body had turned blood red, and his skin was injured by the sword chi. The wound was extremely thin, and could not be seen with the naked eye. Their cultivation had already reached the peak of the King Swordsman, and they could even condense Sword of the Emperor. Lu Xun was the first one to try condensing it. He wanted to lead the way for Long Fei and the others, and also wanted to help them a little. However, condensing an Emperor sword was much more difficult than he had imagined. Wung! 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 The sword hums rang out in all directions, and the sword intent in the sword aura field did not operate according to the same rules. "Big brother, the sword energy is getting chaotic." Bailey Tianhai's pupils tightened, and said, "This kind of sign is a sign of failure. The brother Lu can't take it anymore." The sword cheese were chaotic, which also meant that the condenser's control was beginning to be chaotic. Once chaos broke out, failure was not far off. "What should we do? What should we do?" Zhao Dahan panicked. "Failure means your cultivation is destroyed. This is too big of a blow to Brother Lu." No one wanted their decades-long efforts to disappear just like that. Lu Xun was the same. The reason he left Main Hall Peak to follow Long Fei was to break through and become stronger. Now he was strong. He cherished this opportunity and his cultivation. No matter what, he had to break through. Ah! Both of Lu Xun's hands moved, holding onto the sword techniques. His body released a red light as he roared. Whoosh! A red sword shadow flew out from his body. In the entire sword chi formation, it was extremely glaring, like a king swordsman. The sword chi that was condensed into a form of a long sword shook, and looked at the red sword. Yunshi's gaze tensed up. This sword intent. Bailey Tianhai was also shocked, and said, "Boss, the devil." Zhao Dahan muttered, "What is this?" The three of them looked at Long Fei. At this moment, Long Fei had already disappeared on the spot as he took a step into Lu Xun's sword chi field. He knew very well what that red sword was. He also knew very well that at such a critical juncture, it was very easy for him to be invaded and taken over by the demon heart. Lu Xun really wanted to succeed. He really wanted to break through the Emperor Swordsman rank. It was also because of this that he didn't care about it anymore. His inner demon was born, and with just a thought, the red light in his eyes showed that he was under the control of his inner demon. Enchanted, Long Fei did not object. However, Lu Xun didn't become a demon, but was controlled by a devil. "That won't do. My brother is not yet under the control of the devil." Long Fei let out a deep sound as he stood in the middle of the sword chi field, the aura on his body surging outwards. At this moment, rumble, rumble, rumble. The sword's cry was like thunder as it crazily exploded. Long Fei appeared in the middle of the sword aura array like an intruder. With a slight movement of the red sword, all the sword chi in the sword aura array pointed at Long Fei. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Asterisk in that moment, countless swords were pointed at the space between Long Fei's eyebrows. Yunshi said, "Will he be okay? This is the Emperor's sword chi field." Phoenix took a step forward and her eyes narrowed. Zhao Dahan laughed. "Who is Big Brother? How can something like that hurt him?" Bailey Tianhai said faintly, "According to the records, this Emperor sword chi field is extremely powerful. Anyone who enters can have tens of thousands of swords pierce their heart." Zhao Dahan immediately retracted his smile. Indeed. This sword energy field was a condensed form of the Emperor sword. Ordinary people would not even be able to approach it, much less enter it. Even the strongest Emperor swordsman did not dare to enter. What's more, no one would dare to enter a situation like this where they were under the control of a demon. However, he is Long Fei. He couldn't let his brothers be possessed. If the condensing failed, Long Fei would not intervene. However, being controlled by a devil wasn't good enough. Long Fei stood in the sword chi field and felt the endless pressure of the sword concept. When all the sword chi was aimed at him, his heart immediately sank. He felt a strong pressure. Sweat trickled down his forehead as Long Fei muttered, "What a strong sword intent." Lu Xun shouted loudly, "Peak owner, leave, quickly, leave this place, quickly. I can't help myself. Hurry up and leave. Peak owner." Suddenly, Lu Xun laughed sinisterly once again. "Woo, woo, 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 woo. How dare you ruin my plans? If you come in, don't even think about leaving here alive." "Ah, ha, ha." The red sword flashed with demonic flames. Buzz. The countless illusory longswords inside the sword chi formation condensed, like a tornado of sword chi towards Long Fei. Bailey Tianhai took a step forward, and said, "Big Brother." Long Fei immediately said, "Without my order, no one is allowed to come up." And then, the corner of Long Fei's mouth lifted slightly. Looking at the red sword, he sneered, "Now that you've left my brother's side, why are you in such a rush? Leave." "Ha ha ha. Kid, are you joking?" The voice came out from Lu Xun's mouth. Long Fei said coldly, "I've given you the chance, you're the one who doesn't know how to cherish it. If that's the case." As soon as he finished, boom. Long Fei clenched his fists and roared in his heart, "Level 4 ancient dragon body, open, F***CK. You don't care about face? Then go to hell." Long Fei was furious. The dragon's might on his body bellowed out, boom. The entire sword aura field instantly collapsed. Hualala. 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 The dragon's might caused all the blade energy in the sword aura field to shatter. Long Fei stood in place without even moving an inch. The red long sword began to tremble. Dragon might. Dragon might. Why is there the might of a dragon? His voice was shaking. Demon Heart controlled Lu Xun and released an even stronger devil flame. However, Long Fei heavily stomped his right foot, rumble. The devilish flames were immediately extinguished. His body moved, and he grabbed the red long sword with one hand, smashing it towards the ground as if he was holding a person's neck. Boom. The ground was caved in. The red sword struggled and trembled. Lu Xun was also roaring non-stop, "No, no, no, don't. Destroy." With a flick of his palm, he sent a palm strike downwards. Bam! The red long sword shattered. With the death of his devil heart, Lu Xun's eyes returned to normal, but he was now incomparably weak as he looked at Long Fei and said, "Thank you, Peak owner." Long Fei said, "Don't talk, it's your most important moment." At this moment, the afterimage of a long sword was superimposed on Lu Xun's body. Zhao Dahan said excitedly, "Ha ha ha. Is this a success?" Bailey Tianhai said faintly, "I have succeeded, but this kind of sword of the Emperor is a waste of a sword, it does not have much use." Yunshi also followed, "Having lost the power of the sword chis, the formed sword of the Emperor is just like having no spirit, it is useless, moreover, the Emperor Sword Intent will become the lifeblood weapon in the future. This kind of useless Emperor Sword cannot survive in the divine space. Right now, his body can't take it anymore. He can't release any more powerful sword cheese. I'm afraid. Zhao Dahan was startled. Then, is this a success or a failure? Success or failure? At this moment, Lu Xun had to make a choice. His body could no longer withstand it. Sword of the Emperor did not have the fusion of sword qi, so this kind of sword was completely useless. However, if he didn't fuse them together, then his breakthrough would fail and his cultivation would dissipate. Would he have to start over from the beginning? This was the peak of the King Swordsman. How much time and effort did he use to cultivate up to it? Who could give up so easily? Lu Xun was also struggling in his heart. He didn't know how to choose, and raised his head to look at Long Fei. Long Fei said lightly, "This is your path, everything is up to you." Long Fei's eyes were very firm. At this moment, Lu Xun's eyes tensed up, his fists clenched tightly. Rumble. The shadow of the sword of the Emperor suddenly cracked. This also meant that the condensation failed. Lu Xun gave up. He gave up on the Emperor Swordsman rank, and similarly, he gave up on his own cultivation. In that instant, Lu Xun's entire body was trembling, every inch of his skin and flesh felt as if they were being separated from his body. Lu Xun screamed in pain. Half an hour later, Lu Xun fell face first onto the ground, with blood hanging from the corner of his mouth. Long Fei took a step forward, and immediately held Lu Xun up. With a move of his palm, it touched Lu Xun's back, and a surge of holy source qi entered Lu Xun's body. After sensing it for a while, his heart tightened. "My cultivation base is gone," Long Quang said blandly. "This is considered good. If he chose the sword of the Emperor, then he would truly be crippled. Master, this stage is very important. If I can't fuse with the powerful Emperor Sword Intent, it will be useless in the divine space." Long Fei's heart trembled, and said, "Is the sword of the Emperor that important?" Long Quangdao, "It's very important. He will slowly become your life sword intent, in other words, he will become your life's weapon. The reason why they're called Sword of the Emperor is because it's extremely important, like an emperor. If your life weapon isn't powerful, it would be hard to survive in the divine space." Long Fei was very clear about the situation in the divine space. At this moment, Lu Xun slowly woke up, opened his eyes and looked at Long Fei, and said, "Peak owner, I." Long Fei said, "Don't talk, your body is currently very weak, don't think too much into it, rest in peace, don't worry about other things for now." Lu Xun said, "Peak owner, can I ask you a favor?" Long Fei said, "Go ahead." Lu Xun said, "There is still half a month before the clan congress, can I go into seclusion in the veins of the holy source for half a month?" Giving up all one's cultivation base was extremely difficult. Falling from heaven to hell, trying to climb back up from hell. It was too difficult. However, Lu Xun did not give up. Long Fei replied, "All right, I agree." Lu Xun revealed an excited smile and said, "Peak owner, then how about you send me down now? My body is fine. It's not weak. My body can't take it because my cultivation is too low. Half a month. I must break through to the Sword Emperor realm within half a month," Lu Xun said while gritting his teeth. Long Fei did not stop, and directly carried Lu Xun into the Holy Source Vein Mine. An hour later, Long Fei returned to the upper levels. Everyone in the hall was silent. Long Fei looked at them, and said while looking at their eggplants, "What? A single failure and you're afraid? To lose all fear upon seeing your cultivation?" Long Fei's words made everyone lower their heads. Bailey Tianhai, Zhao Dahan, Yun Shi, and the Brothers of Five Elements were all at the King Swordsman, and it was also the moment they broke through to the Emperor Swordsman rank. Lu Xun's failure had indeed caused them to feel somewhat fearful in their hearts. It was hard to cultivate, but once you lost something, it would become an indescribable pain. Long Fei immediately became angry. "How can you guys go to clan congress like that?" Zhao Dahan immediately stood up and said, "Big brother, let me do it." While they were talking, Zhao Dahan immediately walked out of the hall and towards the plaza outside the hall. He sat cross-legged and moved his fists. Boom, boom, boom. He trained in strength. He did not break through to become a sword emperor, but a strength emperor. However, just like when he was trying to become a sword emperor, he had to condense the power of an emperor. Long Fei raised the center of his brows and watched Zhao Dahan walk outside. Bailey Tianhai looked at Long Fei. Long Fei walked out in large strides, and said, "Big idiot, are you ready?" Zhao Dahan looked at Long Fei and said, "I'm ready." Long Fei said, "If." Zhao Dahan said, "Big brother, I am really ready. I am indeed a little afraid when I see senior brother Lu Xun fail, afraid that my cultivation is no more, but if worst comes to worst, we might as well do it again. What's so scary about that? Just as you said, life and death are indifferent. If you don't accept it, just do it. Heh heh." As soon as he finished, Zhao Dahan calmed his heart down. Then, tightening his brows, the power in his body began to burst forth, forming a huge force field in just a few seconds. Rumble. Rumble. It was as if 10,000 thunder rumbled. The power was incredibly thick, exploding. Long Fei's forehead tightened, and immediately said, "Uncle Fang, protect the array." Breaking through to the next level and condensing the power of an emperor could not be disturbed in the slightest. Breaking through to the next level and condensing the power of an emperor could not be disturbed in the slightest. In Long Fei's heart, Zhao Dahan was more important than Lu Xun. He was his life and death brother who had followed him here. Naturally, it was different. Moreover, with Lu Xun's experience, Long Fei had to be even more careful. Fang Wanpeng took a step forward and released the power of a third-grade divine spirit, instantly forming a unique power domain that protected Zhao Dahan in the middle. Zhao Dahan was not long-winded, the idea moved, and immediately began to break through the bottleneck. Power rumbled. Everything shook violently. Thunder rumbled continuously above North Peak. The entire ancient antiquity was talking about it. What is the North Peak doing? Why are there so many thunderclaps? Could it be that they're setting off a cannon festivities? Celebrating what? The Great Hall of North Peak has been built. Ooh! Ha ha ha! Ha ha ha! Back then, when they entered the inner sect, they gave them a chance to join us. But these people don't know what's good for them, and still want to establish their own sect. Hee hee, can Star's pet chain supermarket compete with Haoyue? This is called overestimating yourself. Does he think that since he obtained the North Peak, he is the peak owner? He can stand on equal footing with us? What the hell is he? Many people were disdainful. He mocked Long Fei. After all, the addition of an additional peak owner would affect their interests, which naturally made them very unhappy. Main Hall. Meng Tu stood at the top and looked at the North Peak in the distance, muttering, "This thunder." He had some doubts in his heart. He was a sword cultivator, so he did not know much about power elementalists. Moreover, the power sect of the ancient antiquity did not have any emperor stage powerhouses, so he was even more clueless. The old servant walked over and said, "I just went to have a look. I didn't sense any powerful energy fluctuations, so I don't think I have broken through the emperor swordsman rank. It's just ordinary weather effects." Fang Wanpeng was a third-ranked divine spirit realm cultivator. How could his power be something that the powerhouse in the mortal world could understand and sense? The old servant naturally did not know what had happened. Meng Tu said indifferently, "I guess it's because of the weather as well." The old servant said slightly, "Master, you still hold some hope for Long Fei, right?" Meng Tu said, "I am already very satisfied that Long Fei is able to avoid Dark God tribe. I don't have any hopes anymore. After all, the cultivation of the disciples that followed him to North Peak is too low. Even if their talent is not bad, they would still be given 100 years. Meng Tu did not hold any hope for the North Peak. It was just that. What Long Fei had said to him back then gave him that much hope, and that was all. The old servant said, "In 100 years, no matter how talented you are, it's probably not enough. Training required time to accumulate, no matter how talented you were." At this moment, In the entire ancient antiquity, many people were laughing at Long Fei, No one was optimistic about the North Peak. Even more so, no one thought that Long Fei would become their competitor. The North Peak had only been established for less than 2 months. What right did he have to compete with them? How could he compete? Long Fei was just a joke. Ah! Boom! All the veins in his body bulged out, and Zhao Dahan's body turned into a giant stone. He released all of his strength at the level of the sovereign realm, and all of these energy rushed into his body one after another. It was as if numerous gigantic hammers were crazily hammering down on his body. He was like a piece of red-hot steel, crazily tempered. Boom! 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 Clenched his teeth and endured each and every blow with all his might. At the same time, a strange power appeared within his body. This strange power was like a tender bud that slowly extended out and lightly swayed. The power that rushed into his body was like rain and the sun nourishing the tender buds. The sprout grew bit by bit. Zhao Dahan didn't know what it was, but he knew that if he channeled his energy into his body, it wouldn't be over yet. Ah! Bring it on! Zhao Dahan roared. Rumble! 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 Boom! 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 They didn't even stop for a second. The space between Long Fei's brows tightened as he paid attention to every single change that was happening to Zhao Dahan's body. 10 minutes later. It's out! Bailey Tianhai suddenly shouted as he pointed at Zhao Dahan's body. A shadow appeared on Zhao Dahan's body. A rock. Stones. Is this the power of his monarch? Big Bro's special ability from the ancient times is a stone, and power of life is also a stone now. Is this good or bad? Is rock very strong? Boss, his emperor's power is like a stone, this. Here, no one had ever broken through the emperor swordsman rank, and no one understood the power attribute. Stone. The power of an emperor, the future power of life. Would the life weapon be a stone? Long Fei himself did not know either. However, Long Quang gave his answer. The stone he condensed was not an ordinary stone, but a heavenly stone. Apart from his strong defense, his toughness is almost invincible. It can be used for both defense and attack. This is an extremely powerful fusion. Hearing Long Quang's reply, Long Fei immediately replied, Dashu, this is it. Zhao Dahan was not confident in the beginning as well. But after hearing Long Fei's words, he immediately became excited and said, Understood. Boom. Boom. He worked even harder. He exerted even more force. Half an hour later. Wang. With an explosive sound, the surroundings instantly quieted down. Fang Wanpeng retracted his power domain slightly, and looked towards Zhao Dahan. Long Fei couldn't help but take a step forward. Zhao Dahan, who was seated cross-legged, suddenly raised his head. A sharp light flashed in his eyes. He stood up and said, Hey! Cluck! 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 Explosions were heard all over his body. Zhao Dahan looked at his hands, looked at his body, and became a little dazed. He looked at Long Fei and said, Boss, did I succeed in breaking through? Long Fei asked, Any reactions? Zhao Dahan said, I don't feel anything. You don't feel anything? Long Fei shivered. Long Quang, are you sure you're not seeing things? He had entered the highest realm after all. How could he not feel anything? Even if he had broken through a small realm normally, he would be able to feel the changes in his power. Now that Zhao Dahan was the power emperor powerhouse, how could he not feel it? Long Quangdao, it's not that he doesn't feel it, he's really strong and numb now. Strong numbness? Long Fei was startled for a moment, then said while looking at Zhao Dahan seriously, Big idiot, release your power, let me take a look first. Zhao Dahan nodded and said, All right. His 5 fingers spread out. He suddenly clenched his fist. He released his power, but Zhao Dahan felt that he could not control his strength. He himself could not describe the feeling. It was as though power had suddenly jumped out of his palm and was launched far away. What's going on? Just when Zhao Dahan was feeling gloomy and puzzled. Rumble. In the distance. A mountain peak instantly ruptured and collapsed. Rumble. 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 A mountain that was thousands of meters tall suddenly collapsed without any warning. Instantly. It was as if millions of pounds of TNT had exploded. That scene. Zhao Dahan was completely dumbfounded. Everyone looked at Zhao Dahan with dumbstruck expressions. Big bro, is that your power? My god, this. Is it still the power of a human? Master, what kind of power is this? What's going on? Brothers of 5 elements surrounded Zhao Dahan with a face full of envy. Zhao Dahan looked at Long Fei and scratched his head, saying, Big brother, I don't know what's going on. Me, only released a power, and when this power was released from my hands, I couldn't control it, and then, that's it. I don't even know if this is my power. He really didn't know. Even he suspected that it was not his own power. However, apart from him, no one else had released their power. Long Fei looked at Zhao Dahan in astonishment as he began to understand what Long Quang had said just now. The strong is already numb. He hasn't gotten used to his strength at all, to the point where he doesn't even know what kind of power he possesses. Also, he really can't control the power Zhao Dahan released just now. Long Fei walked to Zhao Dahan's side and said, the power earlier. Zhao Dahan said, Big brother, I really don't know what's going on. Is that really my power? Even he himself was stunned. Was he really that strong? With just a simple fist, a mountain exploded. This was too awesome. Long Fei said, calm down first, I need you to control your aura. Huff. Zhao Dahan took a deep breath in, and said, Big brother, I'm done. Long Fei said, alright, now open your arms and aim at that mountain peak, and use your idea's power. Zhao Dahan followed Long Fei's gaze and looked over. Thousands of meters away, there was a dangerous mountain that reached 5,000 to 6,000 meters tall. At this distance, who could stand so far away and be destroyed? Zhao Dahan felt that no one could do it, even he himself could not, but he still did as he was told. He opened his palm wide, facing the dangerous peak. The idea moved. Pull. At this moment, the stone formed in his body suddenly swelled. He released a surge of power. This power felt extremely light in his body, without any special power. However, the instant it was released through his palm, in that instant, he felt as if the entire world had been locked on by him, and his palm felt like a cannon. He felt like he had control over the rock. He had already reached the point where he was like a celestial being. He unleashed his strength. Rumble. 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 That mountain peak collapsed, instantly exploding. This time, Long Fei was also stunned. Zhao Dahan, on the other hand, was as excited as a child, and directly jumped up on the spot. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Is that my power? Is that my power? Yes, that's my power, ha ha ha. He smiled like a fool. Holy **T. Big bro is awesome. This is too awesome. This is really amazing. Long Quang calmly replied, this is the power of an emperor. The stone he fused with seems to be much stronger than I expected. His control over the stone is very strong. Long Fei said, damn, he's really powerful. Bailey Tianhai said excitedly, I also want to break through the Emperor Swordsman rank. Me too. All of a sudden, whether it was Bailey Tianhai or the Brothers of 5 Elements, everyone wanted to try and break through their shackles. They no longer had any fear towards Lu Xun's failure. Because Zhao Dahan's strength was too strong, and completely shocked them. Long Fei looked at them and said, it's a good thing that his strength is stimulating you too, allowing you two to have no fear at all. But you must also know what failure means. There's more. If you just want to stay in the mortal world, it doesn't matter if you can condense the normal power of an emperor, but if you want to enter the divine space, you must condense a superior power of life, as it will decide your fate in there. If it's normal power, then please give up, and start over like Lu Xun. He can do it. Long Fei said very seriously. Having experienced it twice already, he did not want to say that they had chosen carelessly. Bailey Tianhai replied, understood. The Brothers of 5 Elements also nodded heavily. Long Fei said, alright, if you want to break through, then go and find Uncle Fang to protect you. All of you are all at the King Swordsman, and I am still at the 8th level of the King Swordsman. I also need to break through. Long Fei spent most of his time teaching them. According to what Long Quang had said, he had taught them that he had wasted a lot of time, which was why his cultivation was a bit weaker. Also, other than breaking through the 9th stage of the King Swordsman, he also had another important matter. Dungeon. Instance dungeon of the King Swordsman realm. Ever since he stepped into the King Swordsman rank, he had not had the time to enter the instance dungeon. Now, he had passed down to them all the things that the clan Congress wanted to compete against each other. The reason why Long Fei gave up on killing people to level up was because of the dungeon reward. The rewards for clearing the dungeon in refined space were simply too great. The higher the level, the better the rewards would be. Right now, it's a copy of the King Swordsman rank, and the reward is. When Long Fei thought of this, he couldn't help but become excited. Uncle Fang, please protect me. I want to break through the Emperor Swordsman rank. Bailey Tianhai was ready. Long Fei glanced at them and walked into the room. He sat down cross-legged. The idea moved and entered the refined space. Enter the King Swordsman instance dungeon. Ding. System notification. Are you sure you want to enter the King Swordsman instance dungeon? Yes, sir. Long Fei did not hesitate. When the idea moved, Long Fei seemed to have been sucked into a certain space by a surge of energy. At this time, the system sounded out. Ding. System notification. Begin challenge of the King Swordsman instance dungeon. Long Fei opened his eyes and saw a giant in the distance. Zhong Xian's eyes narrowed. His heart trembled slightly, as if his entire being had been frozen in place. The visual impact was too great. It was an incomparably large statue of a giant, covered in thick armor. It held a petrified long sword in both hands and sat on a huge throne. A swordsman. A powerful swordsman. This area was completely empty, and was none other than the statue of the giant. Is it the target? Long Fei muttered. He raised his head and looked at the sculpture of the giant, and lightly exhaled. His right hand moved, summoning out his great treasure sword. Following that, Long Fei slowly walked forward. In the game, there were many petrified bosses. What Long Fei needed to do was to get close to him and activate him. When he was near the giant swordsman, Long Fei looked at the surrounding terrain. As far as he could see, it was all flat ground and there was no available terrain. From the looks of it, this war can only be fought to the death. There is no such thing as a bug. Long Fei was mentally prepared. Then come. Bam! Bam! Long Fei stepped inside the 100-meter radius. It was also in this moment that, Hualala! The surface of the statue began to peel off, its massive body began to move, and its enormous eyes snapped open. Buzz! The pupils of his eyes were like two sword hearts. The moment it opened, tens of thousands of sword gleams were released. Boom! Boom! Long Fei immediately slowed down. The pressure of the sword light. Long Fei frowned. What a powerful sword beam. The blue-haired ancestor of the Sword Elf Mountain can't even compare to it. This fellow. Just as Long Fei was saying this, the statue suddenly stood up, the pieces on its body fell to the ground, and the armor on its body revealed itself. At the same time, its attributes were also displayed. Boss, ounce race, giant clan level, sword Saint Emperor health points, 500 million point skills, myriad Jun sword technique, giant sword technique. Profound truths of the earth, sword annihilation. A series of attributes appeared in the system. Long Fei secretly clucked his tongue. My darling, what the F***CK? This health, this level, isn't it a bit too fierce? His attributes were a bit out of the ordinary. However, Long Fei was exceptionally excited in his heart. The stronger you are, the better it feels. Bring it on. Long Fei's footsteps became heavy, and he rushed forward quickly. Without waiting for Long Fei to come close, he raised the sword in his hand and jumped straight up into the sky, then slashed down at Long Fei's head. Hualala! The sky shattered, and a powerful bolt of lightning appeared where the tip of the sword had pointed. It was as if a sword was controlling a massive lightning field. Boom! It came crashing down. Crash. The sky directly shattered. Long Fei's pupils tightened, explode. The cultivation of the 8th stage of the King Swordsman erupted all at once, his speed doubled, and his figure left behind a long afterimage as he rushed out quickly. Ao's sword technique was very powerful, but his speed was not that fast. To be exact, it should be very slow. Long Fei moved to another direction. He had completely dodged that sword move. But when the gigantic sword landed, the entire instant's dungeon space was trembling. Long Fei originally thought that he had dodged this move, but his health point abruptly dropped. Moreover, he completely ignored the defense on his body. His health point was immediately down to 10%. Long Fei was overwhelmed with shock. Fuck. Is this an AoE skill? 100,000 refined sword? This is the damage of the 100,000 Jin sword? Holy **T. Long Fei secretly cursed, and quickly swallowed a few medicinal pellets, recovering a bit of his health point. Ox saw that Long Fei was still jumping up and down, so he swung his sword once again. Once again, the sword soared into the sky as thunder rumbled. Is this going to happen again? Damn. 2 swords are going to kill me. Long Fei's heart sank. No. My health point is simply unable to withstand the second sword strike. The few heal pills health point that he had swallowed could not recover so much. After this sword strike, he would definitely die. Immediately, Long Fei roared in his heart, "It's your turn to look for him, now it's my turn to make a move as well, right?" Level 6 Ancient Dragon Body. Open. Rumble. Long Fei's body instantly changed. The dragon's roar shook. The instant's dungeon secret world began to tremble violently. The aura around Long Fei had completely changed, and the image of Holy Dragon Emperor had appeared on his body. In front of the gigantic illusion of Holy Dragon Emperor, Giant Ounce was just like a little dot. Too small. Ozzy was slightly shocked as well. However, his pupils constricted, and he did not show any fear. On the contrary, his fighting spirit had been roused. The hands that held the sword turned malevolent. Buzz. An ear-piercing sword hum exploded from the enormous sword, and light shot out in all directions. The power released caused Long Fei's dragon heart to faintly tremble. What kind of power is this? There was a feeling of natural restraint. Just like a dragon blade. The damage done to the dragon would be multiplied by several times. This was the feeling that Long Fei had now. Was the giant sword in Ox's hand the dragon sword? F***CK. I don't believe it. With the level 6 ancient dragon body on him, Long Fei moved his great sword, Sheng Long, Tyrant Wyrm. As soon as the sword move was unleashed, the immense power of the sword move shot out explosively from the bottom of Oyu's feet. Rumble. Roar. It was like a Tyrant Wyrm's roar. The immense force sent Ozzy flying into the air. Long Fei's footsteps moved. Bind him. The great sword hacked down heavily, landing on Oz's chest. Ao's body caved in slightly, and his body fell heavily onto the ground. The impact caused a huge crater on the ground, but Ozzy was unhurt. Just now, Long Fei could clearly see that the damage figure that floated above his head was only a 4-digit number. Compared to the 500 million health Ox, the damage of a few thousand was negligible. Long Fei was stunned. One had to know that this was the level 6 ancient dragon body. It could easily crush some low-rank god's powerhouse, but it only dealt 4 digits of damage to Ozzy. This. Long Fei's mind was buzzing. Isn't this too abnormal? Crack, crack. The sound of metal clashing rang out. Ao Sai slowly stood up from the deep pit, his body trembled, and all the dust on his armor fell down. His eyes darkened as he stared at the gigantic Holy Dragon Emperor simulacrum. In an instant, Ozzy disappeared. A feeling of being crushed rose in Long Fei's heart. At this moment, Hualala, the dragon head of Holy Dragon Emperor's simulacrum, was suddenly chopped off. The enormous illusion shattered. This. Long Fei was completely stunned. It was impossible for the image of Holy Dragon Emperor to be so weak, not because he was weak, but because he was too strong. His power was simply too strong for Long Fei's ancient dragon body. F***CK. System, you did it on purpose, right? Long Fei was indignant. The system was solely targeting him. The strength of the ancient dragon body had never met an opponent before, but now, completely targeted. Even the dragon head was chopped off. If it wasn't for the system, that would be impossible. Damn you. System, damn you, don't let Lousy find your designer, otherwise if I don't beat him up, Lousy will be with his surname. Long Fei had never forgotten to look for the creator of the system. He had to figure out what was going on with the system in his head. However, now was not the time to dwell on this. When Ounce cut the dragon head off, Long Fei's level 6 ancient dragon body power instantly collapsed, causing his body to sink down slightly. Although he wasn't injured, his body was in pain. What should I do? Long Fei consecutively retreated backwards as he stared at Ox, who was falling down from the sky. For a moment, he could not find any way to deal with it. A perfect existence. No weaknesses could be found. What method? Long Fei's pupils tightened. Rumble. As he landed on the ground, he gripped his long sword with both of his hands and dove into the clouds once more. The power of the 100,000 kilogram sword began to gather once more. The sword slashed down, but Long Fei was still unable to block it. Just as the heavy sword was about to strike down, Long Fei still did not have a single thing to do. Just as the heavy sword was about to strike down, Long Fei still did not have a single thing to do. He was too strong. No weaknesses found. Even if he found a weakness, 500 million HP was simply too difficult to kill. If the level 6 ancient dragon body can't do it, then it's level 7. I don't believe it. Long Fei moved. Level 7 ancient dragon body, open. He is currently at the 8th level of the King Swordsman, and is able to release the power of a 7th level ancient dragon body. I can't hold on for too long. Roar. The dragon roared, and the world was devoid of light. The power of the 7th rank was absolutely incomparable to that of the 6th rank. The Holy Dragon Emperor Phantom that was released was more real, like a living dragon looking down on heaven and earth. He opened his blood bowl and swallowed it up. Roar. He swallowed it heavily. Aos was in no hurry to let the dragon swallow it. Long Fei was overjoyed, look this time. Not waiting for him to finish. Hualala. The colossal dragon's head was chopped off once again. The energy released by the ancient dragon body of the 7th level instantly dissipated as well. His body sunk and he directly spat out a large mouthful of blood. The power that he had just released had only been released for less than 3 seconds. Then it would be wasted. The power of the ancient dragon body I'm cultivating is fake, right? Long Fei was starting to suspect that the ancient dragon body's power he had received from encountering the gods, as well as the Buddha, was fake. It was completely imprinted here. It was completely useless. Not only was he unable to cause any harm, he was also badly injured. What was going on? Long Fei was completely dumbfounded. After continuously receiving blows, Long Fei's heart was truly a little uncomfortable. Rumble. Ozzy landed and swung his sword. Hualala. Hualala. With the energy gathering crazily, the power of the ox giant started to burst out as it pointed the long sword at Long Fei. A fierce gust of wind pounced over. Long Fei was almost sent flying by the sword chi. There's no other way. Is there nothing we can do? There are so many dungeons and so many quests. I have never failed before. I refuse to believe this. Long Fei gritted his teeth until it made a cracking sound. Since the power of the ancient dragon body has been suppressed, then I will use my own strength. He clenched his fists tightly. Boom. Boom. He immediately summoned his infinite boxing out. Long Fei now had 4 oars. However, he hadn't been able to put it in, but now, he had no choice. The power of the ancient dragon body was not his opponent. Right now his strongest power was only the power of eternity, and also the pair of gloves. I don't care. Originally, I wanted to leave this infinite boxing's power to the Emperor Xian. Today, I'll test it out on you. He took out 10 oars. Boom, 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 boom. 4 consecutive explosions. Long Fei clenched his fist tightly. He didn't even need to embed it, he just directly placed it on top of the oar. Buzz. Rumble. The power shot out from his fingers. This power. Endless. Moreover, the power of 4 different elements made Long Fei feel as if the entire universe was in his hands. This feeling could only be described by one word. It felt so good. Hualala. With the help of the giant sword technique, Ox waved its sword, and an endless amount of sword chi pounced towards Long Fei, piercing right into the center of Long Fei's brows. Phew. Huff. Long Fei calmed down and exhaled 2 breaths of air. He raised his eyebrows and locked onto the sword with his eyes. He opened his right hand. It formed into a palm. He reached out and grabbed the sword. Bam! The moment when the 2 powers wanted to collide. In an instant, it formed 2 egg-shaped forces that continuously collided with each other, shooting out in all directions. Long Fei's forehead turned sinister, erupting with the power of the raw energy stone. Countless fists clenched hard on the blade. Boom. The powerful force was sent flying backwards. Ounce was directly sent flying backwards. And at this moment, the dimensional ore moved, and Long Fei stepped inside. Crash. Long Fei appeared behind Ox. The power of the strength provenance stone erupted once again, throwing out a punch. Rumble. The armor on his back was torn apart. The space rocks once again released the power of space. Long Fei appeared behind Ou once again and punched him again. Hualala. This time, all the armor was shattered. Bang bang, bang bang. Hualala. Hualala. Using the power of the energy stone and the power of the dimensional rock, Long Fei punched left and right, ruthlessly and ruthlessly. Arrogant. Cut off my dragon head. F***ck, you dare to be so arrogant with me again? Long Fei vented his rage ruthlessly. Being abused just now was extremely unpleasant, with his dragon head being chopped twice made Long Fei feel extreme despair. Ox's power had truly completely suppressed his ancient dragon body's power. If this guy was from the ancient world, then the power of the ancient dragon body was basically crippled. However, fortunately, Long Fei still had a trump card. Fortunately, he had collected 4 oars. Otherwise, he would not be able to complete this instance dungeon. Come on. Long Fei punched out again. Did not give him the slightest chance, but he is the Emperor of the Sword. And he had more than 500 million HP to support him. Even if Long Fei could crush him, killing him quickly wouldn't be such a simple task. The heavy sword had been used. He had also used the giant sword technique. He still had a big move that was useless. After being struck away by Long Fei, he was still in the air when a ray of light suddenly flashed in his eyes. The light was boundless. The sword chi shot out. In an instant, his body suddenly stopped. Clenching his fists tightly, he stared at the sky and let out a hoarse voice, sword annihilation. He stabbed the sword fiercely into the ground. Annihilation? His ultimate move. His ultimate move. Long Fei's eyes darkened. OZ's attributes were very clear. The extermination sword was the ultimate technique. How powerful was it? The system did not explain. However, it wasn't hard to imagine how destructive it could be. Because the sky was already splitting apart. Everything in the instance dungeon was collapsing. At the same time, his long sword also started to crack bit by bit. Annihilation? Is he using his own sword as a primer to destroy everything? Long Fei's eyes darkened slightly. Damn. Aren't you being too ruthless? However, Long Fei slightly curled the corner of his mouth and said, "It's good if you want to annihilate yourself." Heh. He smiled complacently. Just now, he had only used the power of 2 oars. He had yet to use the power of 2 more stones. One was the time ore. One was the soul rocks. The idea moved. As the stone of time was released, the entire space suddenly came to a halt. Long Fei slowly walked in front of Ox and smiled. "Do you know what this is? If it wasn't for the lack of a ore, you would have been killed instantly after I snapped my fingers. Are you afraid? All right. I don't have time to talk to you. I'm sending you to hell. Long Fei unleashed his power. The power of the strength provenance stone erupted, aimed straight at Ox's head and wildly exploded. Bang, bang, bang. His HP quickly bottomed out. It became 0 points. It was about to explode. As his HP fell to 0, the giant's body split open. As his HP fell to 0, the giant's body split open. Boom. His body completely ruptured and his surroundings turned into nothingness. At the same time, a system notification rang out. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for killing Giant Ounce. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining Greatsword Heart. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining Giant Sword Soul. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining Oz's Sword of Punishment. The system beep continued to sound. Everything that came out were things that Long Fei could not understand. Genshin. Sword Soul. It was easy to understand, but in the end, Long Fei did not understand the Sword of Punishment that dropped. It was just a mass of indiscernible, pitch-black stuff. It was not a sword, but more like a mass of black fog. What kind of strange thing is this? Long Fei disdainfully said, if he said it was a sword, then what the F***ck is a sword? I can't even see any attributes. F***ck. A 500 million HP boss should at least drop a few super artifact, right? Not a single one. What are you doing? Long Fei was very unhappy with the thing that had dropped. None of these things are good. At the very least, their attributes do not make them good. Most of them are useless. System, you wouldn't be making things difficult for me if you think that I went too far, right? Long Fei wiped the corner of his mouth, his gaze looking at the soundly asleep system girl. He muttered, "Girl, when will you wake up?" The current system is still in an intelligent hosting state. Just like the previous system. Long Fei grumbled in his heart, and then asked, "Long Quang, do you know of Austere's punishment sword?" After Long Fei obtained the sword that he could not understand, Long Quang immediately noticed, and said, "This sword. I don't understand either." "Heh. Even you don't understand?" Long Fei was startled. Then is he a good thing, or a trash? Long Quang shook his head and said, "I don't know, but the only thing I'm sure of is that it is an alien object." "Heh. From another world." Long Fei trembled slightly. Looking at that lump of pitch-black thing, he said in his heart, "Outer domain holy artifact." Long Quangdao, "Master, right now, it cannot be called a sword. I think it needs to be fused with something before it can be transformed into a sword, but I do not know how to control it. Anyway, it can't be used." Long Fei gave a helpless laugh, and said, "Forget it, I don't care anymore. If the boss doesn't drop, the dungeon rewards won't be bad." Long Fei moved. Leaving the King Swordsman Instance dungeon. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for completing the King Swordsman dungeon. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining Heart of Kings. The system beep disappeared. Just a reward. Holy **T. System, aren't you being too stingy? Long Fei was not satisfied with the boss drop, but the dungeon reward made him even more unhappy. A Heart of Kings? Your father's heart is a king. You don't even need to F***king reward me. System girl, quickly wake up. If this goes on, when will it end? Long Fei said bitterly. Heart of Kings. It was not a heart. It was a mass of energy. This made Long Fei feel very depressed. Ding. Do you wish to fuse them? The system sounded out yet again. Long Fei could not help but laugh bitterly. Fusion. Since the reward is here, let's fuse them together. Although he was not a king, he had the heart of a king. Ding. System notification. The Heart of Kings has begun to fuse. Fusion time, 10 days. Holy **T. Long Fei was shocked. He was scared silly by the fusion time. 10 days? What is he fusing with? He never thought that the power of a Heart of Kings would need to be fused for 10 days. He had never encountered this kind of fusion before. Even if it was the system update, It still wouldn't take that long. Could it be that this thing is some kind of super holy artifact? Long Fei guessed in his heart, but he had already begun to fuse with it, so he did not sense any kind of special power. It's better not to think too much. Long Fei laughed bitterly. At this moment, Phoenix entered the room and said, "My darling, Bailey Tianhai has broken through." Hearing that, Long Fei immediately stood up and said, "You broke through the Emperor Swordsman rank?" "Really?" Phoenix giggled and said, "Yes, and the fusion of the sword of the Emperor is not bad either." Long Fei asked, "What is it?" Phoenix replied, "It has something to do with his brain." Long Fei said, "Could it be that it's also a brain?" Phoenix laughed. "Yes, it is a brain, he. However, this brain is different from the one in his body. His brain is emitting holy light, which is rare even in the divine space." Long Quang said with a faint voice, "That will definitely be different. How can it be the same? Master, they all have your spirit blood in their bodies. Originally, with their entire lives, they only had the most talent in the Emperor Swordsman rank, but your spirit blood caused their talent to change greatly, and this is also the reason why Zhao Dehan was able to condense an otherworldly divine stone. It's very normal for Bailey Tianhai to condense a holy light brain now. It would only make sense if it was an ordinary object that he condensed." Long Fei's spirit blood contained an extraordinary power. Although Long Quang said this, Long Fei was still excited. Because they were his brothers. Long Fei walked out of the room in large strides, and when he saw the exceptionally excited Bailey Tianhai outside, he laughed, "Second brother, congratulations." Bailey Tianhai saw the excitement on Long Fei's face and said, "Big brother, we should be thanking you. If it wasn't for you and me, we wouldn't even be able to make it to this step. If you're a brother, then don't say thank you." Long Fei said in all seriousness, and at the same time, looked at the brothers of 5 elements and said, "Now it's all up to you." The 5 nodded their heads, "Boss, don't worry. We will definitely not disappoint you." "That's good. There isn't much time left until Clan Congress. All of you have to do your best," Long Fei reminded her. Everyone nodded their heads heavily. Night fell. Long Fei brought everyone into the Holy Source Vein mine once again to cultivate. He also wanted to break through the Emperor Swordsman rank. The higher his cultivation, the stronger his body became, and the power of ancient dragon body that he released would also be stronger. He had to prepare to enter the divine space. He had to prepare for the next time he would meet the Emperor Xian. He wanted to directly overturn the Emperor Xian. One hit. Main Hall. Great Clan Elder, this time the disciples of Clan Congress have reported it. How did you decide? I think it's about time. Are you sure? In the main hall. The elders of the Peak Owner S of the 6 Peaks were gathered together as they asked about the list of Clan Congress disciples. Meng Tu said indifferently, "Don't be anxious, you have given me the necessary resources, and I will continue to cultivate even if I have to cultivate. When the time comes, I will naturally announce it to everyone when I go to the Myriad God sect." King of Sword Elves said, "Great Clan Elder, there are still 2 days before the departure, so there is not much difference between announcing it now and announcing it 2 days later." Owner of Beast Hill said lightly, "Great Elder, you aren't waiting for Long Fei on this side, are you? You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.